All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Friday, July 19th, 8:47 a.m. Not going to lie, I got home very late last night. I woke up like 25 minutes ago. I woke up and the world was shut down. Like Indian airports are using like whiteboards to do the flight to flight schedules. Every single United American Airlines flight is shut down. I did not know. Tell me in the chat if anyone knew. I had no idea that CrowdStrike was this important. Seriously, do we buy Crowd? I think so. Like, I think this is a buy, bro. Now, look, the caveat is we don't know how many billions of dollars of fines they're going to have to pay for all this stuff, which might end up being dramatic. So I think maybe that's the part you want to like wait to get clarity on. But first of all, this thing's only down 13%. I would imagine it would be down a lot more. We haven't seen it below 300 in a long time, but given the extent of how bad the damage is today, I think this would be down a lot more. The fact that it's only down 13% is interesting. And now we'll see what happens in the open. It got to 270 at one point. If this thing gets to 250, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it probably rebounds a little bit into the 300s, given that this kind of V-shape already happened. But this cybersecurity problem is not going away. And right now, things are still pretty bad. I did not know that this matters, that cybersecurity matters this much. Like, I know it matters, but like, dude, the entire American airplane. Imagine you're on a flight right now, or you're like about to get a flight and it's like delayed because cybersecurity but company Crowdstrike like messed up, and like you're getting the like look, this is what people are, they're getting the blue screen. They're getting I called it Y2K because everyone on Twitter is like, this is the Y2K event. And I'm like, what? Y2K? Are you kidding me? Look, here's another picture. Let me know in the chat. I see some of you. Gene says this is why I bought at 120. Bro, I didn't know cybersecurity mattered this much, bro. Who's experiencing right now at work? Mario says, I've been on hold for my IT team for 55 minutes. Yeah, a lot of people, because CrowdStrike powers their entire organization, they can't even go to work right now because everything's down. Look at this. This is India. They have a whiteboard providing updates about flights. The flight software is currently down at the airport. I had no idea CrowdStrike mattered this much, bro. Banks are down, airlines are down, news channels are down. It has crashed. Microsoft. I don't use Microsoft. I use a Mac, so thankfully I can still do the show today. But that is wild, bro. That is wild. Like, I had no idea CrowdStrike mattered this much. I mean, quite frankly, I'm very ignorant to cybersecurity. I know it's important, but I didn't know it shuts down an economy, like entire organizations. I know this thing. This is the best picture that's going around right now. I think Sundar is looking at his phone, and that Wiz founder who they negotiated $23 billion on the acquisition. I think Sundar just got a text, and he says, "Nah, make it 50, bro." Like, if I was that founder, I would be like, and now we know why Google was willing to pay so much for a startup that's, doing 400 million in revenue, which is amazing, but 23 billion on 400 million is a pretty steep multiple. It's because I guess cybersecurity is so crucial that these companies are going to become some of the most important companies in the world, which means maybe some of the most biggest companies in the world as well. Let's get an update from this, and then we'll keep going.
Just waking up, this is something to kind of sit up and pay attention to. This is having impacts around the world, and it's all sorts of major industries where you're seeing problems with this. We'll go into detail in just a moment on this, but it's something that started overnight in Australia and kind of rolled around the globe. We have seen some impacts from a lot of different places in the markets. Right now, you do see some red arrows. What's happening in both the Dow down by about 85 points, NASDAQ off by 38, the S&P 500 down by 4. Treasury markets at this point, if you want to take a look, you're going to see that right now it looks like the Treasury yields, actually, you can see on the bottom of your screen, 447 is where you see the 2-year, 420 is the 10-year. But all of this kind of waiting to see what happens with the big story that's on global IT outage. Andrew, why don't you take over with this now, because this is the big issue right here. We can't really talk about the markets or anything else without talking about this first.
Let's talk about what is going on here this morning. For those of you who may not have access to your computers or potentially email or other things, Microsoft and cybersecurity firm Crowdstrike suffering major outages overnight. It's leaving businesses, including financial firms, airlines, emergency services, unable to access their computer systems. Microsoft said that its issue began just before 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's last night. Now, the company determined the cause and restored service. Many users still reporting issues. We've got some ourselves. NBC has confirmed that a CrowdStrike update is also causing widespread computer disruptions. The company blaming an issue with the latest update and said that it was in the process of rolling it back globally. But how quickly all of that happens, of course, is the question.
Yeah, and this, I think, just shows the weaknesses and the points where you have a problem. We've seen this with other attacks that have happened and things that have been taken down. This is not a cyber attack. At least there seem to be no indications of this. It looks like it was a problem with CrowdStrike and a new release that they rolled out that had problems and that rolled through. But whenever
I know you guys are thinking of Palantir Apollo, which controls deployment of new updates of their software. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's a world in which maybe Apollo could have been one of the key things that made this more efficient, potentially didn't cause these problems, potentially.
everything's in the cloud, everything gets...
We are all interconnected.
Everything gets shut down by this. You're talking about hospitals, as you mentioned before. You've got retailers that have been shut down by this, communications companies, media companies, airlines, major banks. And you are going to wake up and probably have some issues with this if you are thinking that you've got business as usual and you're off to a place like the airport.
Well, we can only hope. It's 6 a.m. I'm hoping when people get to the office this morning, though there are obviously some people at the office already who are having the problems that we may be having. Phil LeBeau this morning is in.
Here's the CEO. He's on the Today Show. This is what he has to say about it.
Founder and CEO of Crowdstrike, George Kurtz. George, it's good to see a lot of people woke up. They saw that blue screen of death. We've been hearing all about the messes at the airports. A lot of broadcast channels, Australia, even ours here. We had those blue screens everywhere. People are wondering what happened. So what did happen?
Yeah. So first, thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with you first on air. And I want to start with saying we're deeply sorry for the impact that we've caused to customers, to travelers, to anyone affected by this, including our companies. So we know what the issue is. We're resolving and have resolved the issue now. It's recovering systems that are out there. And essentially, as you've talked about in the statement I put out, is the system was sent an update, and that update had a software bug in it and caused an issue with the Microsoft operating system. And
dude, one bug has shut down airplanes across the world. That is wild. Not a cyber foreign government trying to attack us. It's a bug. It's like some dude who was drinking too much Red Bull when he was coding. He messed up.
And we identified this very quickly and remediated the issue. And as systems come back online, as they're rebooted, they're coming up and they're working. And now we are working with each and every customer to make sure that we can bring them back online. But that was the extent of the issue in terms of a bug that was related to our update.
Mr. Kurtz, it's Savannah here in Milwaukee. I mean, you're in the cybersecurity business, and I certainly don't even pretend to understand this, but according to your statement, it was a single content update that has managed to shut down air travel, credit card payment systems, banks, broadcast, street lights, 911, emergency around the globe. Why is there not some kind of redundancy or some sort of backup? How is it that one single software bug can have such a profound and immediate impact?
Well, when you look at the complexity of cybersecurity, you're always trying to stay one step ahead of the adversaries. Excuse me. Man.
Dude, what is going on, bro? Is he about to cry? What? Like, I feel a little bad for him, but this is tough.
Just 1 second, please.
I would imagine this is a pretty tough morning, right? So, like, you got to give him some sympathy there.
Take a drink of water.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sure it's been a long night.
We're always trying. It's been a long night. We're always trying to stay one step ahead of the adversaries. And in this particular case, our systems are always looking for the latest attacks from these adversaries that are out there. So this content update went out, and as it does, and it's been doing for many, many years, obviously we've got a robust team that's looking at the safety and security and the quality of these updates. And we have to go back and see what happened here. But if there's a negative interaction with the way some of these operating systems work, in this particular case, it was only the Microsoft operating system that was impacted, you'll see a reaction like this. And this is, what we've seen here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people woke up and wondered if something nefarious was afoot, if this was some kind of a cyber attack. But you're saying that it was just something within your own system. So now, as we sit here, I was watching the news out of Australia. They were trying to get their television stations back on the air, their hospital software back up and running, the banks going. How long does it take to get everything back up and running?
I don't understand how banks, airlines, television stations, etc., across the world are affected by it. I cannot believe this is how important CrowdStrike is, dude. Like this is a company that for shutting down the world, they're only worth $90 billion. If this was Google, I get it. You're telling me a sub $100 billion company is shutting down the planet across banks and hospitals? Like, if this is the case, I feel like this is the most bullish thing ever. This has to be the most important company in the world right now, or like one of the most important companies that's trading under $100 billion.
Running.
Well, yeah, first and foremost, again, just to reinforce what you said, it wasn't a cyber attack. It was related to this content update. And as you might imagine, we've been on, with our customers all night and working with them. Many of the customers are rebooting the system, and it's coming up and it'll be operational because of, we fixed it on our end. And some of the systems that aren't recovering, we're working with them. So it could be some time for some systems that just automatically won't recover. But it is our mission, is why we're here, to make sure that every customer is fully recovered, and we're not going to relent until we get every customer back to where they were, and we continue to protect them and keep the bad guys out of their systems.
Did you ever think, Mr. Kurtz, that you could experience something like this? I mean, does the breadth of this surprise you?
Well, when you look at software, it is a very complex world, and there's a lot of interactions, and always staying ahead of the adversary is certainly a tall task. So these sort of things, obviously, you try to understand and mitigate them. And in some cases, you have a weird interaction, and it didn't seem like it happened on every Windows system. There's different versions and flavors and patch levels, if you will. And we're just trying to sort out where that negative interaction was. And again, that's what we're focused on, getting customers back up and running.
CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz, we appreciate you coming on the air so quickly after this happened and explaining your company's point of view. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is wild. All right, so if you guys are just joining, CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity company, had a bug in their update. This is not any foreign government type of attack. But as a result of this bug, this company shut down airlines, news stations, TV stations, essentially what it looks like is the entire world. Airlines are shut. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. It's hard to kind of even imagine how this is happening right now. I also don't understand the extent of how important this company is for this thing to happen. I mean, what I'm looking at on Twitter is what you guys are saying in the chat, people across the world are suffering from this. This is a big deal. Let's get Dan Ives' thoughts on this. He just came on CNBC, and see what he has to say about CrowdStrike as well.
What does come next, and what is this going to cost the company?
Well, there's a black eye moment for CrowdStrike, and I'd say for the cybersecurity sector. Now, the damage, look, it's going to be weeks, months, potentially years in terms of understanding the damage. The big issue is the brand damage, because CrowdStrike today becomes a household name, but not in a good way. George and the team, I don't think this changes the long-term story, but other competitors, Palo Alto and others across, they will try to take advantage of this. That'll be a big focus in the sector.
Do you think that there is a liability issue here? Meaning if you're an airline, like an American airline or whoever, where there's a ground stoppage and they're losing money as those planes are sitting on the tarmac, can they go ahead and sue CrowdStrike?
If you're a lawyer for CrowdStrike, I don't think you're going to be seeing the beach this summer, because this is going to be coming from probably all angles, right? Legally, not just airports, transportation companies. Now, look, Microsoft needs to figure it out from their angle. Now, they're more, I'd say a victim here relative to what happened on the Windows side. So I think less of an issue for Microsoft. Look, for CrowdStrike, you're talking about a company that prides itself on brand. F1 globally, anyone that's seen them at airports. And this is just, look, it's an epic disaster. It's something we've really never seen in the cybersecurity industry at this scale. So this is a bit unprecedented.
Who's actually in the chat? I would love to know who's seeing the effects of this right now, either at your job. I think someone said they're at an airport right now. Who's like legit feeling the issue? Mario says he's trying to get his work done. Look, if you can't do your job today, I mean, you have the best excuse ever. It's like, this is not your fault. The whole world is shutting down. Dude, this is crazy. I did not expect to wake up to this. And now I wonder the implications that it's going to have on the broader market. So let's take a look at cybersecurity names. So CrowdStrike already recovering a little bit. It was at 270. Now it's at 302. So people definitely stepped in and bought the dip. We'll have TJ come on the show in about 40 minutes, and maybe we sell some puts on the cybersecurity names, given today might be one of the better red days to do so. So CrowdStrike is down a little bit. Centennial 1 is up 7%. Wow. So Centennial so Palo Alto. Wow. So you would think all of cybersecurity goes red, but all of cybersecurity is going green except CrowdStrike. I kind of feel that CrowdStrike's going to rally as soon as the market opens, dude. Who thinks that? Who thinks it dumps? Who thinks it rallies? Because like, this is the greatest marketing. Unfortunately, it's not a good situation that it happened, but it is marketing for the investor base, if not for the customer base, that this is one of the most important companies on planet Earth. Like, it just has to be, dude. It has to be. Dumps or pumps? What do you think? Dumps or pumps? Banks down in Australia. I work for an aerospace company. We have computer issues right now, and I can't log into our main server application. Goodness gracious. Schwab. So I got a couple texts yesterday that Schwab was not working for a bunch of people. So Schwab has, I don't know if that's a CrowdStrike issue, but Schwab has been having a couple issues this week. I don't think it's widespread though, but it's for some people. I tried to get insurance renewed and they couldn't give a price as their computers are not running. Wow. This is incredible, dude. This is incredible. Can't clock in at work. I can't order Starbucks. Our supermarkets can't take payments. Dude, this is crazy, bro. This is Y2K type shit. This is wild. I kind of think it pumps, dude. I really think it pumps. Let me check Robinhood to see. Oh, yeah, my dad just texted me. He's like, is your YouTube working? I heard the computer system globally is not working. Dude, that's crazy. Like, even my dad is hearing about this. That's wild. So let me check Robinhood. I think Robinhood, yeah, my Robinhood looks like it's working fine. Doesn't look like Robinhood's necessarily affected by this. Palantir's up a little bit in the pre-markets. Robinhood as well. Palantir 28.75. Robinhood 22.94. Let's ask, how many customers does CrowdStrike have? CrowdStrike has 23,000 customers. Oh, no, it's more than that. It's more than that. This was as of January 2023. That means it has to have, I would call it at least closing in on 30,000, 27, 28,000. Yeah, CrowdStrike is a big deal, dude. CrowdStrike did $3.4 billion as of Q4 last year. And they were growing 34%, which is pretty damn incredible. Philosopher says we complete a property sale purchase on Monday. Hope it's resolved, or else we are not moving. This is incredible, dude. Vanguard and Fidelity are working. Okay, that's good. They're going to get sued. Yeah, so that's the problem with buying the dip on this is like, how much money are they going to have to shill out to pay for all the lawyers and the fees and the actual, outages that they're going to have to pay for? Settlements, that's not going to be the right thing. I mean, if the airline says, hey, we lost $300 million worth of business because of this, and they have to end up paying some of that or some of that. CrowdStrike had 30,000 customers. Well, so I guess here's the question. Do you leave CrowdStrike and you go to Palo Alto networks because of this. The thing is, this was a software bug. This wasn't like the problem is he had a good explanation that it was just a bug, but it was also like, dude, if it's just a bug, how could it be that incompetent of you, not of you, but of the company to like end up acting like that? Let's get another update here, and then we'll keep going and see what's happening. Hospitals, yeah, that's the hard part, dude. Hospitals that are affected by this, that's just, you don't even, no amount of money could like matter when it comes to, you know, real patients that need software to work.
Has impacted airline travel worldwide. Phil is in the UK and has the latest for us.
And David, we saw it hit early in this morning. Here in Europe, there were cancellations, long lines. Look at what we've seen over in the United States. Long lines as people have shown up at airports like in Newark, and they see, look, most of the flights are at a minimum delayed, if not canceled. FlightAware is reporting more than 1,200 cancellations so far. That number is going to skyrocket from here. So here's where we are in terms of the three large airlines that had a ground stop early this morning. At about 5:30, 5:45 this morning, American lifted its ground stop. About an hour later, we heard from both Delta and United saying that they have resumed some flights, though neither airline has told us exactly how many flights have been resumed. They both say that they expect disruptions to their schedule throughout the day. Bottom line is this, guys, you are going to see this have a ripple effect throughout the day, both in terms of delays and also cancellations. It's going to take a couple of days for the people who are at some of these airports who can't even check in because of the software issues, finally get on their flights over the next couple of days.
Phil, thank you for that. We'll talk more about why you're there and GE Aerospace in a little bit, but certainly important to have Phil give us a sense of what's happening with these ground stops. Speaking of all this, let's get to our Jim Cramer this morning with a very special guest. Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, we have to speak right now to George Kurtz, the CEO of Crowdstrike, a company that has a stellar reputation, but we want to know what this will do to it. George, thank you so much for coming on Squawk on the Street.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
All right, George, I know your company very well. Our viewers know it too. How did this happen?
Well, first, Jim, let me start with, I want to personally apologize to every organization, every group, and every person who's been impacted by this. And we understand the gravity of the situation. And let me explain a little bit more about what happened. This was not a code update. This was actually an update of content. And what that means is there's a single file that drives some additional logic on how we look for bad actors. And this logic was pushed out and caused an issue only in the Microsoft environment, specific to this bug that we had. We identified this very quickly and rolled back this particular content file. Obviously, many organizations are impacted, and many of them are beginning to recover. Many systems can be rebooted, and we've fixed the issue, so the systems are coming up and running. Some systems may not fully recover, and we're working individually with each and every customer to make sure that we can get them up and running and operational. But to be clear, it was not a cyber attack. It wasn't anything related to that. It was a content bug or update that we sent out, that we identified, and we rolled back.
Why do many different users find themselves with the blue circle of death? And how do IT people get in touch with who is down? Because will this take, are we talking hours? Are we talking days?
Well, many of the systems are quickly coming online because they're able to be rebooted, and the problem goes away and is fixed. Some systems are going to take some more time. It could be hours, it could be a bit longer, but we're working with customers that if the system doesn't fully recover, we're working with them on the specific fix for that. So essentially, we are providing guidance through our tech support, through our blogs. Everything that we know, we want to be as transparent as we can and get that out to our customers.
George, this is CrowdStrike we're talking about. Is this Falcon, which is your best program? And I need to know, why did you not phase this in? Why was this done all at once? That seems to be, to me, irresponsible.
Well, it traditionally goes out in a phased approach, and it goes through, what we do is we've been doing this a long time, testing throughout the life cycle of any of these updates. So it initially went out and we started to see some issues and then pulled it back. So not all of our customers are impacted. Windows and Linux are not impacted. And as soon as we saw this issue, which didn't manifest itself before we obviously sent it out, we rolled it back. And now we're dealing with the impacted systems.
I want to be sure about this. This did or did not get to Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, because if it did, then but maybe that would explain things, but maybe they're separate.
Well, Azure can run, customers run in Azure, right? And they can run our software there. So if there was a customer that was running in Azure that had our software, it could have been impacted. But that's the extent of what I know specific to the Microsoft piece.
You do not know whether this has impacted Azure or not?
Well, when you say Azure, it has impacted customers that are running in Azure. That's what I know.
All right. Now, let's talk about liability. You offered an apology. To me, an apology means that therefore you are culpable and therefore you will be sued, maybe perhaps sued by airlines, perhaps sued by networks, perhaps sued by banks. Let's talk about the liability to CrowdStrike and what it could mean.
Well, we have to sort out what that all looks like, Jim. Obviously, from our perspective, and I wanted to jump on the air because it's all about our response and getting our customers back up and running. We'll do the hot wash on how this happened and ensure it doesn't happen again. I think past that, we'll deal with. My goal right now and my mission is to make sure that every customer is back up and running and providing the protection that they've come to rely on from CrowdStrike.
Do I believe that if the ones that have not come online yet perhaps have to be hand fixed, which would stretch every single IT department of everybody who is a client who you sent this update to?
Yeah, well, we're working on the automation. There's many times this can be automated to be fixed. It may take more automation than just simply rebooting the system. And that's what the teams are working on right now with customers. But we've been in contact with.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We've obviously been in contact with customers working through the fixes, and many of them again are coming back online.
I'd like to turn this over to my colleagues, David and Carl. Maybe you want to ask George something?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. And George, thanks for being here. Yeah, I mean, to Jim's point, I think right here, I know on the ground here at the New York Stock Exchange, our CNBC computers are going to require somebody apparently to come and actually do some sort of an update manually. So again, this could take some time, couldn't it, for organizations that are going to require somebody to actually manually update code or whatever it may be to be able to successfully reboot.
Yeah, there could be some manual steps involved, and certainly we're looking at ways to be able to automate those manual steps. And depending on the system and the computer brand and the network and how it actually works, it's different in each organization. Many systems can be rebooted, and the fix can be done automatically upon a reboot that's specific to the hardware manufacturer. So we have to work through that, but there is a manual fix for it. That can be employed. And again, we're looking at ways to automate those sort of fixes so that it isn't as manual as going to be.
Understood. You mentioned obviously some updated content, the issue with the Microsoft environment solely, but to what extent is Microsoft, or in the past, had they perhaps been able to identify something that might cause a problem? I'm just curious to understand if there's any culpability here in terms of Microsoft as a result of what's occurred.
Yeah, we're trying to sort out on our end, again, exactly the interactions. And as you might imagine, the operating system, and this is what we're talking about, Microsoft operating system, is robust and complex. And if you have a negative interaction based upon our content update, that caused the issue, right? Or can cause the issue. So we've got to do a hot wash and figure out exactly what systems were affected. Was it a particular operating system version or a patch level on a particular system? We don't have all the details on that yet, but that's what we're going through right now.
But George, historically, because you've been on Mad Money multiple times, you have had less than complimentary things to say about Microsoft and cybersecurity. Is that at all impacting your ability to be able to work with Microsoft this morning to get this resolved?
Yeah, we know what the fix is, and we've already rolled that out. So, specific to Microsoft, again, I think both us and Microsoft are focused on customers and customer health, and we want to make sure that customers get up and running.
Let's talk about reputational risk, because again, at CNBC, I have to believe that CrowdStrike has a black eye. I'm not sure exactly what that extends to. Have you already had customers who just said they're fed up and don't understand why you did this?
I think many of the customers understand that it's a complex environment, and staying one step ahead of the bad guys requires these content updates, right? And I think what we've seen before and what we see now is that customers are understanding that we are doing everything that we can to get in front of it. This is why I'm on your show, Jim.
Of course.
We want to be able to say what we're doing. We want to keep people updated. We want to be as transparent as we can and be front and center with our customers, standing shoulder to shoulder to make sure they get them up and running.
Best practice.
Some things are out of my control. What I can control is our response.
No, we would appreciate you coming on and being straightforward. But again, we have to understand, I believe that best practices when you roll things out is to do things region by region. So impact is limited. It sounds like you did this all at once, all across the globe.
These are staged in terms of the actual rollout. It doesn't just roll out all to every computer that we have under the globe. It rolls out in a cascading fashion. So when we saw the issue, that's when we were able to roll this back so that the entire customer base was not impacted.
George, hi, it's Sarah. What's so remarkable about this is the size and the scope. It's almost difficult, from McDonald's stores in Japan to 911 emergency services being affected to, of course, we've been talking about the airlines. It feels like we're pretty vulnerable to this sort of thing. I mean, what can we learn about what made this happen, why it's so interconnected, and how vulnerable are we going forward? I know you're supposed to protect against the bad guys, and this isn't related to cyber, but now they know how easy it is.
Well, it's an interconnected world. Our customers are still protected from the adversaries, and this is, again, what we do for customers day in and day out for, well beyond the last decade. But I think it shows the complexity of the technology environment and how interconnected the digital world is.
I have to admit, George, I am still confused. Some customers have between 10,000, 50,000 Windows machines. I have to believe it's hard to get there. And I want to know how much this needs to be done manually reset versus something you can do at your headquarters.
Well, it depends, Jim, on each customer and how their systems are configured. Some customers, it's simple as a reboot. Other customers, they can automate the reboot process and delete the file that was the offending content file. Others, it may be more manual. So it really depends on each individual system. It depends on the hardware manufacturer. It depends on how they have it configured. Each customer is bespoke in how they have their own operating system and IT configured, and we're working through the various ways to be able to bring them back online.
Okay, now, obviously, we're more concerned about first responders in 9/11. How many of them are back on, and how many do you believe are right now, I'd say, in the dark about what's happening?
Well, we're communicating to our customers through various channels, our blog and our tech support portal. And obviously, we're going through the number of impacted customers. I don't have the exact details for you as we go through them, but as you might imagine, we're working through each customer through our customer support, and we're being proactive in letting them know what's going on and the potential fixes that are available to them.
George, it's David again, just to follow on Sarah. I mean, this morning when I woke up and my app that tracks the subway trains that lets me know what time they're coming in didn't work. And then I went to a city bike and I tried to retrieve a bike to get down here and that didn't work. I think a lot of people say, my God, if this can happen just from a simple update of content, what in the world could our real adversaries, such as the Chinese, do to us? How do you answer that?
Well, this is the challenge with cybersecurity. When you look at infrastructure and you look at keeping the bad guys out, I mean, there's incredible capabilities that the Chinese government has, and this is one of the areas, again, why we focus on being able to protect against these sort of attacks. Obviously, it was an issue that we're dealing with, but the sophistication of the adversary shows how vulnerable we are. And it's a function of the interconnected world. You like using your app, you like the speed and ability to get on the subway or call a car service or what have you. Everything is interconnected, everything is connected in the cloud. And this is why these systems need to be protected.
All right, George, I want to be able to try to give you your due here. I want to be saying that this could happen today. This was a glitch. This was not something which says that CrowdStrike should not be counted on when it comes to cybersecurity.
That's right, Jim. Again, we've, I think, built a stellar reputation on protecting customers. I've been at this for a long time. I'm personally involved in making sure that we get every customer up and running. And from my perspective, it's how we respond to this and how we get customers up and running. There are many companies that have issues and bugs and different things that may impact the system. This is just part of software and part of the interconnected world. I want to be here and I want to talk to you directly and the audience to let our customers know that they're protected. We're working through this issue. We've identified it very quickly. We've rolled it back. And now we're bringing our customers back to health. And that is our promise. That's my promise.
All right. This is very interesting, bro. So, couple things. Number one, if I was the CEO of CrowdStrike, I would lighten the mood a little bit on this apology tour. And I would have started off the show by saying, hey, Jim, did you ask any of your viewers to just turn it off and turn it on again? And maybe that would solve the problem. All right. So anyway, I want to personally apologize. See, that's what I would do. Okay. That's what I would do. Now, that's also why I'm not the CEO of CrowdStrike, but I swear to God, I would do it. I would not hold back, dude. No lawyer could stop me from making that joke because, first of all, in life, you do the joke to do the joke. Like for the intrinsic need, there's certain opportunities where you get the chance to take the joke. You do the joke. You just don't get those opportunities ever again in life. So you do the joke. And if you have a big audience on national TV, you definitely do the joke. Now, that might piss off some people, but I think some people would also be like, this guy is, at the end of the day, even though this sucks, he's trying to deal with the whole situation. And you can't really just be sad all day. At some point, you've got to laugh about the pain, right? And so I think maybe it would make it more personable. Unfortunately, and I'm analyzing it as like from a debate coaching perspective, right? I'm trying to analyze his performance, how it affects the market, or how it at least affects people that are thinking of his stock. I think this was the greatest opportunity for him to pump the stock. I think he could have pumped the stock right here. He didn't have to explicitly pump the stock, but when Jim asked, or the other host was like, what does this mean for China, right? If this could happen domestically, if I was him, I would have been like, yeah, this is why the CrowdStrike is very, very important, because if this could happen right now over a small bug, which I'm really sorry this happened, but unfortunately we're trying to figure it out and resolve it. But if this happens from a bug, imagine what could happen if China or Russia actually launched a full-on cyber attack. Like, I would really make this an opportunity for the investors that are watching CNBC, right? Not Good Morning America. This is a business channel. I would make the case like, hey, this is a dip. I wonder, can you say that as a CEO online? Like, guys, this is a dip. Like, this is a BTFD. Figure out what that means. But this seems like CrowdStrike is quite literally one of the most important companies on the planet. Down 13%. Centennial One is up 10%. Palo Alto up 2.5%. Fortinet, I would imagine, is up a little bit. Fortinet is up 0.17%. So 0.17% in the pre-markets. So all eyes on CrowdStrike in about 4 minutes where this guy opens up. Do we go below 296 or do we gap back up to like 315? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Toby says you're right. He looked weak and shook. Yeah, and I look, this is his Vlad moment. This is his GameStop moment. All right. He's going to do a lot more interviews from today. He's not going to be able to sleep for the next couple of weeks, quite frankly. He's going to get horror stories from, think about all the people that lost money because they couldn't sell their GameStop or they couldn't buy more, whatever. There was a bunch of people that just lost money when that whole debacle happened. He's going to be hearing about people that couldn't make their daughter's wedding because they couldn't get on the flight in time or something. Like, there's going to be bad stories that come out of this. And he's going to have to take it on the chin and just be like, you know what? This is what happens when you run a company. This is also an argument to all the people that like don't like corporations. Like without corporations, without incredibly important technology companies, like the world stops existing. The world ceases to operate. So it's like it's so confusing to me how people can critique corporations and corporate greed and all this stuff. Dude, like if these companies don't work, everything stops. Like, so there's a level of greed that's like kind of required from these companies to become as big as they are, because if they don't, like United Airlines shuts down and then you can't go to your daughter's wedding because you missed your flight. So it's just one of those gut punches that reminds you that companies actually do matter in the world, especially tech companies. And they have outsized impacts on just what happens and how the world ends up playing out. Daniel said, I sold already. I think litigation and customers leaving could occur. I think that could occur, but so the real bear case from the scenario is people leave and they use Palo Alto. Now, I'm not smart enough to know the difference realistically between Palo Alto and CrowdStrike, but if there's like no difference, then yeah, it's as easy as people leaving Robinhood to go to Schwab, right? The difference is you get maybe a crappier interface, but at least you know that the sell button or whatever the buy button is never going to go away, and you're going to have customer support. And Robinhood had to work 3 years to get people to trust them again, right? So, but that's a brokerage. That's a consumer product. We're talking about tens of billions. With CrowdStrike, you're talking about hundreds of billions, if not trillions, in terms of the global economy that's been affected today. So, I don't know. If people want to leave, maybe they have the shot, but maybe they can't leave, and maybe this shows how important CrowdStrike actually is as well. It just showed retailers how big company is, and now there'll be more buyers in the market. Yeah, I think that is possible as well. CrowdStrike has 3-year contracts commonly. I would imagine there's some clauses in the contracts that say, hey, if you guys mess up, like we get something because of that. I'm sure people are going to want to try to sue CrowdStrike and get some value from it. You should call Iliano sitting at the airport right now. Yeah, shout out to Iliano, our friend who works at the Palantir merch store. He's he just texted me, do you need to call me into the show like a reporter live on the scene? Okay, so the market's going to open in like 30 seconds. And then in like 2 minutes after the market open, we'll call Iliano and we'll get his live take because he's at an airport right now trying to get back home. This is pretty crazy, dude. This is pretty crazy. Tesla's down a little bit in the pre-market. IWM is down. Bitcoin, 64,000. I did not know CrowdStrike was this important of a company. All right. 9:30 a.m. Friday, July 19th. Stock market is now open. All right. Here we go. We got CrowdStrike that opens down 14%. 14% on the day. Wake your ass up. The market is now open. 294. It's actually not getting hit that bad. I mean, buyers are stepping in right now. They're buying the dip. It's not getting hit that bad. Robinhood 22.87. Palo Alto's up 2%. Centennial 1 up 11%. Netflix. Oh, wow. Netflix. Look at that. Netflix is up 4%. They had a good earnings. We'll talk about that in a bit, but Netflix had a good earnings. ICRG, Intuitive Surgical, they also had a good earnings. They're up 7% right now. Amazon's down a little bit. Snowflake's down. Nvidia's down. Palantir 28.55. S&P 552. QQQ 479. Bitcoin 64,000. Tesla 247. Rocket Lab 521. Taiwan Semi down 1.7%. Wow. SoFi 746. So SoFi's getting a little hit as well. CrowdStrike now is down 15%. We're at 290. We're at 290 on Crowd. We're at 290 on Crowd. It's not 270. It hit in the pre-market at one point. So 270 was when it really got hit. I think people buy this thing, dude. Market. It's a $70 billion company, and it just showed that if they have a single comma that is in the wrong place because some engineer was geeked up on Celsius and they typed their code wrong, that the world shuts down, like literally shuts down. I mean, that's insane, dude. 293 on Celsius, down 14%, $70 billion company, $3.4 billion in AAR, or annual recurring revenue. Eli Lilly, 886, Broadcom, 160. OpenAI and Broadcom are apparently working together to make a chip to rival Nvidia. I don't know how successful that would be, but apparently the information reported that that's happening yesterday. HIMS is up 1%. Salesforce is up. Meta is up. In terms of the macro, I do think maybe we get our third day of a sell-off just because it's been kind of a crappy week. We got this Y2K event happening in the morning. You would imagine that markets are in a little bit of disarray. Yeah, the 10-year is up 4.236% now. 3 consecutive days of selling would not surprise me. I mean, it is what it is. Markets have had a really good year, so you would imagine going into earnings, things take a little bit of a dip. Netflix, though, up 5% is incredible because Netflix had a good earnings. They didn't crush, but they met their numbers, they raised their guidance, and their operating margins went up. It's not as much as the street wanted, but it was enough for the street, I think, to get excited. And also, the call was great. We listened to the call yesterday on the market close. It was absolutely phenomenal. They did a really, really good job kind of just describing what the moat is at the end of the day for Netflix. All right, let me give a call to Iliano. He's at the airport right now. Let's see if he picks up and if he can give us some on-the-ground explanations of what's happening. Hello, Iliano. I am here on the market open. We would really appreciate it if you could give us some on-the-ground coverage of what's happening at the airport.
I've always wanted to be a reporter, so this is awesome. Well, basically, I'm in Milwaukee International Airport.
Real quick, Iliano, can you put the phone to your ear if you're using AirPods, because it's definitely getting a little out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, this is perfect. All right, this is perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm at Milwaukee International Airport. I'm coming back from the RNC, and I just remember I went up to the gate. As of right now, my flight is on time. I'm flying United back to DC, but a gentleman in front of me goes to the counter and is like, "Hey, I'm checking in," and she's like, "Your flight's canceled," and he goes, "Why?" And she just responds, "Technology." So. Yeah, that's pretty great. She wasn't gonna break it down for him like CrowdStrike, Microsoft outage, whatever. But yeah, I mean, people seem to be in pretty good moods here. I mean, it's a Friday morning, it's early, when I think people had expectations coming into the airport. So there's not too much rowdiness, but there's definitely people just kind of hanging around. I also think that the one benefit is that they really pushed out expectations early, so people didn't show up to the airport. And they didn't find out at the airport. So people were finding out well before they got to the airport, which I think helped mitigate a lot of the frustrations that you would typically see with like a last minute cancellation. So yeah, that's the scene here. But also keep in mind, Midwesterners are they're a lot nicer than most folks. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so given you're on the ground and you're giving us some coverage on the ground, what you're seeing at the airport is people are not like crying or complaining. They're kind of just taking it on the chin.
Hey, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, you're back. So I was saying, given you're on the ground right there and you're giving us coverage from the ground, people are not crying and screaming about this. They're kind of just like dealing with it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, most people came to the airport with expectations that the flights were either canceled or going to be delayed. So word spread pretty fast. So I don't think there was a lot of surprises. And so therefore, you don't have any angry people here at the airport. I mean, you have some, but most of them are still at the hotels or, haven't made their way down here.
Okay, now let me ask you, CrowdStrike in general, I mean, you and I have both known about the company, but did you expect it could ever be this important that the world could shut down?
Well, I was born, I mean, I can't speak to like CrowdStrike or anything, but, I remember 2000 and like everyone was saying that things were going to shut down. I mean, look, dude, when everything is reliant on the grid, whether it's hotel keys, flight paths, everything that we do is digital. Like it's yes, we're very susceptible. That's why it's really important to have, really strong, security controls, and at Palantir, we take that very seriously. So, but I can't really go into the technicals of what happened. I don't have that information.
All right, last question for you, Iliano. What was the energy like at the RNC? How was it?
The RNC was an experience. Like it was a party. I mean, people. I think, given what happened over the weekend, I think people went into this feeling pretty confident with the momentum, especially when you factor in sort of the negative news on the other side of the aisle. most people are feeling pretty confident. If you would have talked to most of these folks, 3 months ago, they would say it's 55, 45, 60, 40 at best. I think people are here. People at the RNC are closer to 75, 25, or a lot of people are like, he's 100% going to win. A lot can happen between now and then, but the energy was unreal. There was a ton of
how was the Hulk Hogan experience?
That was pretty electric. That was insane. He just kept on saying brother, and I was just kind of like, well, what about the sisters in the audience? Give them some love too. But Hulk was amazing. That was exciting. I've never seen that live. It was a party. I'm really happy I came here. There was a lot of good policy discussions on the sidelines of the event.
Right.
That's kind of like you don't just go and sit in the convention hall the entire time. There's all these events that take place, and you sort of get an idea of what the next administration is thinking. And it's just a really good, informative experience, and you build a lot of relationships. And so there's a lot of people that are DC based that are going to do the RNC, then they're also going to go do the DNC. They don't really care about which party's in power. They're just trying to prepare for whatever happens in November.
Right. All right. Thank you, Ileano. This is off your bucket list of being a live reporter, and also off my bucket list. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for fulfilling my dream. All right, man. Have a good one.
See you, man. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I guess at least in Milwaukee, the airport is okay, and we're not having a catastrophic meltdown right now. But interestingly enough, Crowdstrike here at $300, it's not really taking that big of a dip. It was down 12%. At one point was down 16%. Now down 12%. People are buying it up. I kind of think people buy the dip, dude. I don't think people get that scared off of this happening. Although this is very scary, I don't know from a stock perspective, people think that they're going to have so many issues. If anything, it just proves how important they are to me. June says my trades aren't going through on Schwab right now. Okay, let me see on Robinhood. Are my trades going through? I will buy I will buy $1 of Palantir. Here we go. Will it go through? Let's see. It went through. All right, Robinhood's working, and we added to the Palantir position. There you go. That's what we got. Bitcoin 64.7. Yeah, Robinhood seems to be working fine. Interesting that Schwab's not working there. My SoFi buys are going through on Robinhood. SoFi's taking a hit right now. Robinhood back up to 23. Nice to see Robinhood there. SoFi getting a little hit, 738 down 2%. I still think the rate cut thesis will play out, and SoFi gets closer to 850 after earnings, hopefully, or end of September after the rate cut. But yeah, today it's definitely taken a little bit of a beating. Palo Alto's up 1%. Centennial was up 10%. Now it's up 5%. Snowflake's up a little bit. Eli Lilly's up 3.5%. And then Crowdstrike here down 12%. Who's buying the dip on Crowdstrike? Who's buying the dip? Who's buying the dippy dip on Crowdstrike? Why is SoFi getting hit? I don't know, quite frankly. I actually don't know. Maybe are banks down today? It could just be a general sell-off of banks. Yeah, banks are down. So SoFi is starting to trade a lot with the banks. So maybe that's why. But in general, it's had a good run, right? It was at 615. Now it's at 740. I know we want it to be at 8, but like still in the past week, it's up 20%, which is still not bad. Bought at 295, bought at 281. I know this analysis is very elementary, but like, I just feel like this just solidified how important of a company Crowdstrike is. And it's unconceivable that this happened from an update, but it shows how important that update was. I mean, could you imagine if Google put out an update? I mean, the amount of things that run on GCP, AWS, Azure, if any of those three hyperscalers made a mistake, like I would imagine this would be 10 times worse given the amount of companies they affect. But the fact that Crowdstrike is even this bad makes me feel like it matters. It's very important. Where's Palantir? So in terms of Palantir, I did the video yesterday going deeper into the Germany partnership we got with the state of Bavaria, 2883 right now in Palantir. I think for Palantir, getting back to 29 or getting into the 30s before earnings, it is very possible. However, we are seeing a bit of a rotation in the broader tech sector, and that could potentially affect the markets. Nvidia at 120. If Nvidia goes back to 105, I don't know if Palantir stays at 29. What is really funny, though, is so I had dinner with Chris yesterday and Adam Bergman, And we spent 3 hours trying to convince him. I'm being hyperbolic, but we spent some time trying to be like, Chris, like, you close your puts, just buy 1,000 shares. We will welcome you back into the community with open arms, no bad blood, nothing. And Chris was like, nope, I'm not doing it. You guys are doing peer pressure. And the one thing Chris said that made him officially close out his puts, it wasn't really the Dan Ives upgrade, which, by the way, I got to share the video of that because I think Dan Ives did a great job explaining his upgrade. But it was when Nvidia was down 6% on Tuesday, Palantir was flat. And that's when he was like, oh, so this thing really is just like the community, like the cult is just not letting this thing fall apart. Like, Nvidia goes down 6%. You would imagine the other AI names take a bit of a beating. Nvidia lost almost $200 billion in market cap in one day. Palantir loses like what? A couple $100 million, barely moves. And so when he saw that, he was just like, oh, so this is like a different level of pressure. Now, my argument is that's because this is institutional, Chris. I was like, that's because the big boys are playing in this game. It's not retail. He thinks it's a bunch of apes. I'm like, no, dude, I think that's where you're wrong. I think the big boys are controlling the stock right now. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's why it's not going down as much as, as the market is, because people want exposure. So I don't know. The Dan Ives upgrade right before earnings, though, does make me feel that he thinks AIP monetization is starting. We'll listen to him in a second. And if he does think that's the case, then yeah, maybe Palantir really is going to shock in Q2, but usually they don't shock in Q2. Usually it's Q3, Q4. So we'll have to see how that plays out. S&P is green. QQQ is green. They were red for 2 consecutive days as of yesterday. Amazon, $14.2 billion in Prime Day sales. That's what happened for Amazon. Palantir, 28.74. So that was good numbers for Amazon. The market really doesn't care too much. Netflix, wow, Netflix just lost its whole pump. Wow. Netflix lost its whole pump. Honestly, it's not that surprising because Netflix is, I would say, priced to perfection. And like, as much as I think they had a good earnings, I don't know if they had a good earnings that justifies another 6-7% on the stock. But I also don't think they deserve to be down 6-7%. So I thought yesterday the initial reaction was a bit of an overreaction. They got on the call, management calmed everybody down. So I mean, staying flat at these levels, up 1 or 2% is probably where this ends up playing out. But it's not just Netflix. The whole market's taking a little bit of a dip right now. Even Palantir went from 28.85, 28.72. Robinhood's taking a little dip. So it's probably moving with the market. Crowdstrike down 11%, not really collapsing. Down $7 billion in market cap. It's not like it's the worst. Celsius at $50. Domino's is flat. It's at 409. I didn't get to go through the report yet. I'll do that over the weekend. I just didn't get a chance to look at their earnings, but I would imagine that their guidance was lowered, which is why the street got upset. Also, the sushi restaurant I went to yesterday, everyone was out. Everyone was out, right? And so it's kind of like a weird thing where it's like, yes, the consumer is struggling because they can't buy Domino's, but then why is everyone out at this like fancy restaurant, right? Like, why are people like it's, I guess it's a tale of two worlds in terms of people have some disposable income to go out and shop, and then other people can't buy pizzas. And I think that story has to resolve itself over the next few months in terms of how the labor market reacts to it. And we know the labor market is weakening yesterday because we had 20,000 more unemployment reports than were expected. Looks like Schwab just rebooted something, but still have issues. Yeah, see, I got text yesterday that Schwab was having issues, so that makes sense that it was taking a little bit of a hit. Okay, let's hear from Dan Ives on his $50 price target on Palantir, and then we'll have TJ join us on the show, and we will discuss all the moves we've made in the portfolio and what moves we could make today based on this cybersecurity situation. Here's Dan Ives on why he upgraded Palantir to $50.
Yeah, Josh, the AI revolution's here. And when I look at the next step, the use cases, Palantir, I think, is going to really be the one that's front and center in a lot of these deals. And we're seeing that through a lot of these cloud channels, a lot of the work we do in boot camps. Investors, look, if you've seen, they're negative at 6, they hate it at 12, despise it at 18, and screaming at 25. And I think that this is a stock that has a massive move ahead of it, given where the AI revolution is heading. That's why it's the Messi of AI.
I was curious, Dan, reading your note, what had changed or what different information that you had to take you to that bull case? Because it looks similar to the case that you had made before for the stock. So was there more data that you were gathering to get you to 50 here?
Yeah, Julie, it's just in the almost 100 customers that we've spoke with, the conviction level is increasing. I think deals accelerating. And I think what we're seeing on AIP conversion is even stronger than we expected. Now, does that mean for this quarter, for next quarter? But when I look out the next 6-12 months on Palantir, I think this is going to be a golden child of AI. And right now, I mean, institutionally speaking, it's very negative because I think many don't understand or appreciate the true, what I view as the competitive moat that Karp and Palantir built.
What, it was interesting, Dan. I was talking not too long ago with Brent Till over at Jefferies and covers Palantir, and he was encouraged by what he saw in Palantir's business and fundamentals, but he was staying on the sidelines, and it was a valuation call. He just thought it looked pricey, but you don't share those concerns here.
Josh, I get the valuation argument, but it's very similar to how I viewed Microsoft and Apple and Tesla and so many other names, that you have to view it as a sum of the parts. You got to view it on what's the commercial business worth, what is AIP going to drive, and then put some multiple in the government business.
So the critique of Dan Ives' $50 price target, which is at $50, makes no sense because the valuation is crazy. Again, Dan is just not a valuation type of guy. He's looking at it from a more holistic perspective, not truly from the numbers. Some people don't like that. Other people say, hey, that's the insight you need to get the Teslas and the Amazons of the world. And that's kind of the route that he's going when it comes to analyzing Palantir.
And I think when you start to put those together, I mean, you could start, 35s are base case, but then you start to get to a bull case $50 into next year. As this goes to the second, third, fourth derivative. And I don't know how you could have a basket of AI stocks and just dismiss Palantir. I mean, that's sort of our view, and that's been our conversations with investors, even though it's a very contentious name.
Dan, I'm sure you're aware of some of the chatter, you kind of referred to it, that's out there lately. There is some skepticism creeping out there on AI. Edison Lee over at Jefferies just writing today that what we're seeing right now in tech in terms of the sell-off isn't actually about geopolitics. It's not actually about concern over China and Taiwan. It's actually about concern over AI's return on investment. I know you don't agree with that, clearly, but, are people, what do you think that's about? Is it just that people are getting impatient here? What do you think? Or do you think that they have a point?
I mean, look, this sell-off, I can tell you from all my conversations the last 48 hours, it's the Trump, Taiwan, China war, right? I mean, those comments, and obviously he'll speak tonight, and then you factor in what potential Trump second term, what does that mean in terms of the AI trade? So I think that's this sell-off. But Julie, I think when me and Josh talk in the next few weeks, and Josh is wearing his pink sports jacket, I think we're going to have a massive tech earnings season.
So Dan Ives, that's his argument for Palantir, and he is obviously very bullish on tech. He thinks tech does well. He doesn't really think Trump really affects it. And he definitely thinks that the sell-off we've been seeing over the past couple of days, which it's not a dramatic sell-off, but a little bit of dip, he thinks that's a buying opportunity. And so we'll see after big tech earnings happens how he thinks of it. Nvidia right here, 120, Palantir 2863, Robinhood 2306, Palo Alto 332, CrowdStrike now it's down 9%. The dip is getting bought on CrowdStrike. All right, let's bring on TJ to the show and see what we got going on in the public portfolio. TJ, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
How is it going? Did you know CrowdStrike mattered this much? Because I didn't.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I know a couple of people that work there. I mean, they're based out of Austin, Texas. And
they are. They're in Texas.
They do big things, but I don't know enough about the space. But dude, I'm real interested in it.
All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about in the portfolio. We sold puts on Nvidia and Meta and a bunch of companies over the past couple of weeks. Some of those in the money, some of those out of the money. So I guess let's bring it up. Let's go through what we've got going on. See what we're going to do.
For sure. So let me go here, present, share the screen.
Some people are still saying their Schwab is not working. So let us know in the chat if that starts to get figured out soon.
So we've got it pulled up here. So this is the just a macro look at what we got going on, right? So essentially we've collected 100,448. We have total open collateral of 628,100. Open P&L approximately on the share zone. This is not updated because I didn't do it this morning, but the other part is. And the premium gains loss on the shares. You know, the whole enchilada, we're up about 108,000, maybe 105,000, depending on how Intel's doing and the companies that we own shares in. And then these are the tickers that we've traded since we started, guys. So we've gotten 26,000 on Hood, the 7,000 and some change, and so on and so forth. So essentially, a big part of our money has come from Hood, from BITX in the distance, a cash secure put that we sold way out in the distance, and then Meta has been clutch with 14,000. But Meta is also something that we are monitoring closely because we have some puts that are like right at the money now.
So for those that are new to the show, this is where TJ and I manage some capital, a part of TJ's capital. So he's about a $6 million portfolio. We're managing about 500,000 to 600,000 of that publicly, and we do that on the show. And we do that through wheeling. We sell cash secure puts, we buy some stocks, we sell covered calls, and we do that publicly every single Friday. So it's going okay over the past 6 months.
Yeah, it's really well. I mean, essentially, I'd say the average that we've had allocated during that time is approximately 400,000. If you want to take like a weighted average, if you will.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about some positions because I snuck around behind your back. Have you ever found out that like maybe a girl cheated on you, and then when you found out why she did it, it didn't hurt as much? There's really no such thing. But I took a recommendation on you. Actually, I took a text and I read it like this: sell puts on Crowdstrike. That's how I read it.
What was the actual text? You want to read them the actual text?
You can't control how my brain receives info.
So the actual text, guys, was, we might have to sell some puts on Crowdstrike, LMAO. And TJ was like, okay. That means
I sold 2 puts on Crowdstrike at 270. This was literally 5 seconds studying the chart, and I'm like, 270, we can dance here, live with the results. And so we picked up a little bit of money, Amit, $1,300 for tying up 27.
Dude, I like it. I 270, I think it's a deal. I don't know that much about it, but it's up at 312 from 270, and it feels like this is one of the most important companies on the planet.
Yeah, so essentially we could just bail out and make 424 in a few minutes, or we could stick it out and just kind of, because we wanted to be in the space. So it's like now I feel like we get paid a little bit of money to study the space, if you will.
Dude, those puts are up 1,000% today. That whoever bought the 270 put on Crowdstrike, whoever had the genius intuition to think it would potentially go down, I mean, they made 10x because of a global outage.
Yeah, I wanted to buy 200 shares as well. That way we're playing both sides. But I was like, dude, if I, because UiPath has worked out, but I mean, this is like a legit, could be an investment, whereas UiPath was totally a swing trade. And I was like, I don't want to be that wrong because I just don't know enough about it. And I was in this company for a little bit selling puts, but it was like in the 180s or 190s, and I thought it was overvalued then. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just don't know enough about the space, and I didn't want to really get caught in a big way. So I'm happy with this little win right here. I think that we milk it to about 60, 70% and call life good. If we really are serious at that point, then we got to take a serious look at the company.
I mean, dude, I like it. I mean, this is like, it just feels like they really do matter, and they're growing 35% year over year. Like, the question is, do they have to pay a ton in fines because of this? And even if they do, I think it doesn't affect them long.
Yeah, I don't even know what's going on, dude. I slept in, and then something about there's outages. I saw you remember when Trump won, and there was this guy that was like, all crazy yelling whenever he was doing his speech over there in Washington or whatever.
Yeah.
So I found his sister at the airport on the internet. She's like screaming all crazy because they canceled the flights. And I was just like, that's when I found out that there was something going on with outages. And then my buddy Alan Shin messaged me saying that there was outages. And then I think Chris Patel posted something that CrowdStrike had affected his life a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So now we're in the cybersecurity play. We're in Crowd.
So, pretty easy. So now let's talk about big plays. This American Airlines play is one that I put on, but you were comfortable having as part of the allocation. So now we've got 150 puts expiring on 8/2 that are like right at the money at 10.50. And this is all of the premiums that have been collected, the 192, the 2914, the 950, and the 875. So it's quite a bit of money, dude. $10,050 times 150 at 1050. How do you feel about American Airlines? Because my due diligence was like, well, you know, no matter what happens, people are still going to have to like get around and fly, and it's a lot more efficient than driving, depending on where you're going. But here we are, you know what I mean?
Right.
Here we are, and it's like right at those levels.
Yeah, I think I think that's fine. I mean, the thing about airlines, Delta and United had great earnings, but their stocks got tanked for like various small reasons. United ended up going green. So I think I'm fine with American Airlines at this level. I think the airline industry itself is rebounding, and I mean, this is just a company that's going to be around for a long time. So I feel like we could wheel it for a long time as well.
Yeah, if it stays in these levels, dude, we can keep picking up, you know, $3,000-$4,000 over and over and over, and that's not like the worst thing on that amount of capital.
Let's go to Palantir, because you sold some puts. You tried to tank the stock. You have been unsuccessful.
I did. I made a video on it.
Yeah. So why don't you explain why you sold those $26 puts?
It's because I'm just trying to collect premiums because eventually I'm going to have to give back money on defending these $12 calls.
Right.
So I'm like, I want to do that with other people's money. So this is like my 5th or 6th round of premiums on Palantir at levels that I'm not even interested in Palantir, but there's so much momentum there. This is just a momentum play. And I'm like, okay, or maybe I want to keep Palantir at these levels. I think it's a little bit frothy right now, but I'm not opposed to making money at it. I'm certainly not going to do an iron condor like Chris Patel and lose money doing it. So I'm going to position myself to make money no matter what the market conditions are. If you guys want to pump Palantir to 30, 35 bucks, well, I mean, I'm not going to sit around on the sidelines. I'm a player. You know, there's players and there's spectators, right? So I'm a player. I'm going to figure it out. In worst case scenario, Palantir tanks to what I think is reasonable levels in the $23, $24 range. Then I'll just manage this trade, and then I'll really be serious about scooping up more shares.
So how much are you up on this $26 put right now? We are up
27%.
1,700. Okay, so the idea is, for those a bit unfamiliar with cash curve puts, we sold a put on Palantir at 27 bucks or 26. We put up $2,600 of collateral times 50 contracts, so about 100 grand, and we collected how much, TJ? 7,000.
6,250.
6,250. So if Palantir on August 9th, which is after earnings, is above 26, we keep the premium and give back the collateral.
Yeah, so essentially agreed to tie up the money for a little over a month. It was 130,000 collateral, and they paid 6,250 up front. So I just did the math on that, dude, just real quick back of the napkin math, and I'm like, that's a ridiculous return. Okay. So, and then this is also part of the earnings, right? Because isn't Palantir having earnings during this time frame?
August 5th. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, I like it. Palantir. I think that they're going to crush, bro. I think they're going to crush, and I don't want to just sit there and, you know, try to make little videos of like why I think Palantir is overvalued. That doesn't make me any money. What makes me money is selling puts on something that I believe in long term. So whether it's overvalued, undervalued, fairly valued, I got to figure out how to make money with it. And 10 years from now, is it going to matter? Yeah. Because I think this company is going to go to half a $500 billion. That's my bet. You probably think it could go to $1 trillion. I don't know. But I see a world where it can go to, you know, $400 or $500 billion, and I want to be part of the ride, a bigger part of the ride than I am now.
Yeah, and I think the market's starting to recognize it. And even if there's a little pullback, I think the thing about the pullback now is like 25 or 26 will be seen as a dip, because we've been in the 29 range, 28 range for so long. Whereas a dip realistically would have been 21, 22. Right. So now I think the base is changing, and I think people are just getting excited for the beginning of this story. So I agree.
Yeah, dude. And that's the thing, dude. I think that it really is early, which is kind of crazy, right? Yeah. Considering, I mean, this thing is what, year to date? What is that? Look at that, dude. I mean, it's trading like a penny stock. I mean, this thing's insane for the last year, you know, up 60% according to this chart right here. And then it's been doing well.
It looks like my YouTube subscriber growth. when that low period, that was a tough one. That low period.
So okay, there's that one.
Let's do Robinhood. Let's do Robinhood.
Other stuff that we got going on here that maybe might be noteworthy is Meta.
Okay, let's do Meta. Yeah, let's do Meta. Let's see that one.
And seriously being challenged now, right? So, and this is a pretty big position, because you're talking about $48,000 5 times over. We agreed to buy these shares at 480, and Meta's gone all the way to like, I think 464 or so, something like that. And we picked up 89.25. So that part was good. That was the gimme. The gotcha is if Meta goes down to 400, don't go cry to your mom. You know what you signed up for. So now we're right there. So now we're just kind of like essentially waiting it out. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about it now that you feel the pressure? Because whenever Meta's at 510, 515, it's easy to sell puts at 480. You're like, oh, I'm getting paid to buy it at a good deal, right? That's the mentality. That's the mindset. But now that you're here, if there's not a level of excitement, then you've already probably decided that I'm probably going to have to roll this position. Or if there's like an anticipation and an excitement that you're dealing with that we could potentially own these shares, they could get put on us, then that's the right mind frame. And you also have a strike price that you're legitimately comfortable with.
I have zero issue with being down on these puts, primarily because here's my thing. I think after earnings, Meta crushes, but if they don't and they're stuck at 450, 460, I think we roll 480 every week and collect premium until it's above 480. Because I unequivocally believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe this thing is closer to 550 at the end of the year.
Me too. And that being said, I don't want to Shopify this thing.
Yeah. Well,
in other words, now that the opportunity is there to pick up these shares, I truly believe by the end of the year with the election cycle and everything else, them not just pissing money away trying to do this metaverse thing. I truly think this is going to be 550, 600 a year from now. So I would want to be a much bigger player in this play versus just selling cash secure puts and cash grabbing. I would like to ride those shares up 30, 40, $50 because then that really makes a dent in the portfolio.
Yeah. So taking assignment at 480, I don't think is crazy at all. If it dips to 460, we could also roll the 480 and then just buy 200 shares at 460 right out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's just to have the right mindset, because I feel like when we're talking about a much higher conviction play versus a feeler play like on Shopify, where we're like, well, let's see if it goes in like somehow in the 40s, then we're like for sure interested. Whereas with Meta, I really think this thing's going up and to the right. And, I'm just pissed off that I sold 2,500 shares at, $213. So now I'm just like, well, I might as well go get some of that money in a bigger way.
Yeah, and if Meta goes down to the low 400s, it's an easy buy. Like one of the Shopify is tough because it's not Meta, but Meta's Meta,
Yeah, no, agreed. So then the other one we have a real big play on is, remember Intel was causing problems because we were going to leave a bunch of money on the table. And what did you say? It finds its way back to what?
31-ish. 30-ish.
Right. So here we are, right? But what did I do? I said, we don't want to leave all that money on the table, Amit. So I sold 25 cash secured puts at 32 to defend these because we were only able to roll these out. So then we allocated more capital and we brought in more money through the door by agreeing to buy 2,500 shares at $32. So essentially doubling down on the position. So let's look at that one. That one's gone against us in a pretty substantial way because we picked up 18.25. If we were selling these cash secure puts here today, we would be collecting 31.50. So that's a real basic way to look at the scoreboard. So that's how you know that the timing wasn't the best, but I still like the sweet spot, 31, $32. So this is a trade that isn't causing me pressure. And then the reason I like this trade so much is because if these 32 puts are causing pressure, then that means that the pressure is being released from the 31 calls that we have. So the next round of cover calls is going to be a lot more lucrative, and we could potentially go from a 31 strike to a 32 strike, depending on what the market is doing.
Yeah, so basically what TJ is saying is that even if we have to end up buying Intel a little bit higher than what we initial bought at that $30 range, if our $31 covered calls get called away, that's a good problem to have because now we have shares left and we can just sell new juicier covered calls because the stock's in the right direction.
Yeah, or if we want to defend these shares, and if it's in the $32, $33 range, it's a lot easier to go up $1 for a profit as well on these, because I don't mind getting Intel to 5,000 shares at these levels because it just doesn't stress me out. I think that I don't think it's a great buy. I think it's a reasonable buy.
Yeah, I think and I think trying to get greedy and get the 25s is likely just not going to happen. So if there's
I think that the macro has to collapse quite a bit, or Intel just has to put out more bad news, right? Because they're good at that too. So yeah, I like it, dude. I mean, we're up on the shares, and we've been making money on cash secured puts and covered calls. Because remember, I had also done 25 cash secured puts back in the day and locked in money as well.
Right.
So it's been a profitable campaign so far, and I like the way that we're playing this one because we're playing both sides of the fence simultaneously. So another position that you'd like to talk about real quickly?
Yeah, let's do Robinhood.
Oh yeah, that one's been just an absolute blessing, dude. I cannot thank you enough for bringing that play into the equation.
But see, that one was up a lot when it was at like 24.50. It's probably down a little bit now, but we should make some money on this one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. I got so many damn open plays. Here we go. Yeah, dude, this is a sleep well at night, dude. This is a sleep well at night. Essentially, we tied up quite a bit of money here, guys. We're talking about $200,000, and that's the monies that were collected for doing 50 of them, and then the other one was a roll. Remember, we had puts at 21.50, so we sold these last Friday whenever I was over at South Padre. So we sold the 50 at $20, and then I was like, hey, what about these 21.50s? Let's roll these down to 20 so we can kind of match it up, because we already had those in play, and that's how we got to kind of just match everything up. And now we have 100 cash secured puts at $20, and dude, this is not causing any stress. This is a 21 delta, so there's a 79% chance that we just walk away scot-free from this thing. We pocketed quite a bit of money.
Yeah, and I think earnings goes well, and after earnings, we can close this probably for maybe 70-80%, and I think we'll be good on that.
Yeah, agreed. I don't see anything else.
Nvidia.
Okay, so let's talk about Nvidia. So it's down here. So we're down on our whiskey over here on the actual shares, right? Because this was kind of like the meta situation where we wanted exposure to the play, but we took a different route. We bought 300 shares up front or outright at 132, and we immediately started selling cover calls. We sold them at 140, and then we closed those out for peanuts, and then we sold another round of cover calls at 142, and that's where we stand right now. But we also have our second round of cash secured puts. I think the first one was at 120. And now we're sitting here at 7 cash secured puts at 118. And those have been challenged, but we're okay. And this is, again, we got 2205. So we were selling these right here, right now. They would be paying us 3,800, 3,700. So it would be a lot more lucrative to sell 7 cash secured puts right now than when we first sold them, and there's less time on the clock. So it would theoretically be a better trade if we, truly believed in these levels.
Right.
So how do you feel about Nvidia? The reason I'm asking you, I think we should backtrack a little bit. Look at all that buying power, bro.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the moves you made in a second to get that buying power, but I like Nvidia. I mean, I don't know where the big tech small cap rotation potentially goes, but I'm not afraid of owning it above 105, 110 because it's Nvidia. Like, we know how this story plays out over the next couple of years. And I'm saying that based on all the reports I've read about Blackwell and Hopper starting to show demand and revenue, and the H100's not really showing a decline. I think at least for the next 6 months, we're at closer to 140, 150 at the end of the year.
Agreed. And then when we first got into this play, just to take the words out of your mouth, it's fucking Nvidia, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so we're in situations where we're just not stressed out because we're dealing with high quality, high conviction plays. Even though we don't know much about CrowdStrike, we know CrowdStrike's not going out of business either, just with like that little silly play that I did this morning that I think is going to work out well, by the way. So, we're not, we have one UiPath on here.
Yeah.
Forget about my degen stuff with Neo. That's my bet because I do my homework and I live with the results. But I'm talking about the stuff that you and I are doing. I mean, we don't have anything here that is degenerate gambling. This is very there's a lot of strategy behind it.
Can we look at the puts we sold on Nvidia? Because we sold $118. Yeah, those 7 cells. on the 118 puts. So that's for a week post earnings.
Right.
So Nvidia right now, what's Nvidia right now?
120 and some change. 120.51.
You know, the 118 range is interesting because we fell to 116 yesterday, but we fall for like 2 seconds and it just bounces back at the like 120 kind of is where it wants to be. So it'll be interesting to see if we actually have to roll these or get assigned, or we expire worthless on them.
Well, I think another thing that we can look at is what do we just pretend like none of this exists, and we were looking at Nvidia with the fresh set of eyes. Because whenever the positions get bigger and you see a ladder like different strike prices,
yeah,
I try to look at the trade as if I'm looking at it for the first time.
Right.
Like I don't look at the entire collective, if you will.
Right.
And I'm like, if I was looking at this right here, right now, wouldn't we be jumping in, selling cash secured puts in the 105 to 110 range?
100%. Yep.
So then why aren't we looking at doing that?
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I think that a lot of people get caught up in this. Oh my God, I've got to put 2.56% in each position. And I did your paralysis analysis. You're not ready to make money, bro. You're trying to be a bookkeeper. You know what I mean? Like when the opportunity presents itself, the sun is shining, you're a farmer, you're in the business of making hay, you need to get your ass out there and bale some hay. So I'm telling you, I think that right here, Nvidia presents an opportunity for us to make a little hay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was going to come back to these levels. Remember when those 140 calls were getting challenged?
Yeah, yeah. Which is why we closed them out. Someone says, why'd you close them out? It's because we were up like 80%.
No, dude, we were up 97%.
Oh, okay.
So it's like there was no meat on the bone left. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, now let's put them at 142 because maybe those are going to get challenged. So again, like people are prisoners of the moment a lot whenever they do this kind of thing. And they're like, oh my God, you know, it's over here at these levels. And you quickly forget the pain and you quickly forget the gain, right?
Yep.
Like it wasn't long ago that the 140 calls were stressing us out a little bit. So now I'm like, I'm not worried about the 118s. It's whatever, we'll manage those. But is there opportunity to deploy more capital here in a very high conviction play down the road?
I feel you. So what, you want to look at 105?
Let's just see what the option chain says. And when are earnings again, you said?
Probably August 20th that week. So August 16th is.
So I think we could probably just stick right in this area right here and avoid all that. And maybe dance over here. How does 110 feel? The 22 delta.
The thing is, I don't think we get that low, but the one caveat here, which I guess is important, is August and September are the worst 2 months of the market since like 1950. So the idea that Nvidia does fall back down to the hundreds in these 2 months and then it quickly rebounds, it is possible, you know?
So what about doing it over here for August the 2nd? That way we avoid, you know, there might be a sell off that first day or two, but why don't we just avoid that and have a shorter strike price?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then maybe do like 111, 112. That's probably going to be about a 25 delta. Because, I mean, we can always manage these and it's whatever, dude. It's Nvidia. You know what I mean? That's the beautiful thing about picking a company that's just printing money like the Fed.
Yeah, the thing about this is if we do this, we're either going to be right because Q2 earnings gets us to 150, or we're going to be wrong and this thing's heading back to 85. And I think both are possible. It's just I really don't think the earnings mess up. The one world in which we're wrong, but we're right, is that Nvidia crushes earnings, but the market has no more money left to buy them for some reason.
So I want to stay on that point. This is a real good teaching segment. I don't ever worry about being right or wrong on strike prices. I worry about what's the overall goal with the position. The overall goal of the position for me is I'd like to have 1,000 shares of Nvidia that I could write up for the next year or two, because I think Nvidia is going up and to the right. Because if that's not the mindset, why are we in Nvidia just for the trade?
Right.
I could go play with the miners and make a shitload more money than this thing will ever pay me in premiums.
That's fair. That's a fair
point.
So
this isn't a premium play. This is a capital appreciation play that we're just using premiums to kind of position ourselves in the marketplace.
Yeah, so you're basically saying when you're, this is for, you know, for people like me that want to wheel and other people maybe in the chat, if you're wheeling, it's not about trying to, you know, find the juiciest premium on Nvidia, because you could do that off like a micro strategy. What matters here is developing a position and just getting paid to buy the shares in the first place. All right. Yeah, I think let's do one.
Because it's like, I'm always looking at, okay, what's the goal? Like, why am I selling these cash secured puts? Is it just to try to bring money through the door? Because if that's the case, did I go find you something that pays a hell of a lot more premiums than this?
than Nvidia. Yeah, there's more
You know
volatility.
what I mean? Like I wouldn't be messing with it over here. I really wouldn't. This is about trying to build a position, but we don't want to just buy these shares outright because they didn't work for us the first time. We bought them at 132, and we can see how that worked out.
Yeah.
So it's like now we can get paid to agree to buy them a little bit better. So we would average down, improve our position overall. And at the end of the day, again, it's Nvidia. 3 to 5 years from now, where do we think Nvidia is going to be?
Yeah.
So I don't beat myself up over these positions that much as people would think. Like, oh my God, you're underwater, cash secured puts. And I'm like, dude, you're playing checkers. I'm over here playing chess. I'm looking at 3 to 5 years from now. I need some fucking Nvidia in the portfolio to balance the boat because I got Neo for Pete's sake. You know what I'm saying? Like I got another end that isn't Nvidia, and I'm like, I mean, how the heck can I have $250,000 tied up over there in Neo and have $30,000 tied up in Nvidia? It's a little silly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't want to pressure you into selling these puts. I'm just saying that's the mindset with Nvidia. Is we don't have to be right now. If we feel like we're going to be right eventually, because we think that this bad boy is going up and to the right, a lot like Meta.
Yeah. So I think let's hold off then because it's not a red day. But when we get a red day, then because today's a green day, so probably it does make sense to sell them. But yeah, I agree. And the good thing is we already have 7 puts at 118, so we could see how that plays out and decide then if we need to get assigned or not.
Absolutely. And then this is another home run play in mid. I mean, dude, you're pretty good at this, bro.
Okay, so this is not me. I got to give credit to Adam Bergman. He called me up. He said, look at BidX, the $24 strike. And I looked at it and it was giving $800 a contract. I was like, this is stupid. We're going to get some of this. So
yeah, so we tied up quite a bit of money, $2,400 times 20, whatever that shakes out to mathematically. And then picked up $16,000 for that. Did it on June the 24th. So this was about a 6-month play, give or take. And we got paid the 16 G's up front. If we wanted to do the exact same trade today, they would only pay us 11.9. That's how you get to this profit over here if you want to close it out. So essentially, you can give them the 11.9, free up all the capital, and you lock in a $4,100 profit just to really learn how to read the scoreboard for people that might not be so familiar. So far, a pretty good trade. Only been in it for a little over a month or so. Not even a month, right? Yeah, not even a month. And we're already up 25% on that trade. So it doesn't get any better than that when you're selling these puts in the distance.
Yeah, and so for everyone knowing what is BidX, it's a 2x leverage Bitcoin fund. So speaking of what like getting premium drunk, on Nvidia, you're not going to get a basically 35% return, but on a leveraged ETF against one of the most volatile assets on the planet, which is Bitcoin, you could do that, especially when Bitcoin took that nasty dip to like 53 2 weeks ago. So that's why we did this play. By January 2025, Bitcoin basically needs to stay at this level, if not, 10, 20% higher, which I think is possible. And then if it's above 24 on this particular stock, we're going to make 16 grand.
Yeah. So I think that we stay in this play as long as the premium per day makes sense. But if somehow like Bitcoin were to pump to like 75 or something crazy, and then we look up 3 or 4 weeks, a month from now, and 5 weeks from now, and we're up like 50% on this play already, then that's when you have to make those decisions.
Correct.
Does it make sense to keep the capital tied up for that long when you've already gotten a big chunk of that premium that you can realize?
Yep, exactly.
So that's a real good play. So shout out to Adam, because that's
I had dinner with him last night. It was great. So he's doing well. Yes, TNA is a 3x leverage ETF for IWM. We don't have any of that, but it is a 3x leverage on IWM. And Palantir, yes, 29 again on Palantir.
Very cool. So I can't see anything else, Amit, that has to do with our situation here. I've got a lot of put credit spreads and stuff because it's stuff that I used to do offline, but now I'm doing it online. Yeah, the only other position here is Path. You can show that one real quickly. This is a very small position, relatively speaking, and it's not causing a lot of problems. So we've got the shares that are essentially even on 2,000 of those. There's a commitment to buy 2,000 more at 12.50 that I'll manage. I'll lower those down to 12. At 12, it's an acquisition price. And then we've got the shares for sale at $12. and we've made quite a bit of premium along the way. This has actually been a very lucrative play, and it was just a straight up gamble when I did it, because I think you had tanked what, about 30% on earnings or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was a CrowdStrike situation where you just see a big red day and you're like, oh, let me just play and I'll figure it out whether or not I really want to be in the space later. I've done enough homework on UiPath to be comfortable as a swing trade, but definitely not anything I want to have in the portfolio long term. I just don't really see a reason why they get back up to $20.
I agree. And Kathy sold some Path the other day as well. So
yeah, and didn't she just buy like a ton of it?
She bought 1 million. She sold like 50,000 or 500,000 or something the other day. Like I just don't know anything about this stock, and it feels like it's gonna get left for dead. So yeah, it makes sense not to make it a big position.
Yeah, so that's about it. So can we talk about what's going on with the portfolio and what we would like to accomplish on this segment?
Yeah, so you have massively increased your buying power in your portfolio. And again, this is the cool thing about you is you actually share everything publicly, so everyone gets to see it all up front. So the question is, what major moves did you do this week to allow you this flexibility, and what was the philosophy behind doing that? Which also is going to implicate our segment, because now we get to have more money in our segment as well.
Right. So was approaching $1 million in premiums for the year. So obviously you have to pay short-term capital gains on those, right? Anytime you're selling cash equivalents to cover calls, it's like having a job. You got to give the IRS their fair share, right? Or more than their fair share, if you will. So essentially I was in a situation where there was 11,000 shares of Enphase out there, and I was down about 300 grand on the shares. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sell those. Before I do, though, I'm going to buy some leaps, because I still want to maintain exposure in this particular company, because I'm bullish on the company long term. So I freed up a shitload of money by locking in a tax harvest. Now, I didn't get a tax harvest on the whole thing, because whenever you buy leaps right before you do something like that, they're pretty hip to the game. So it triggered a wash sell on that portion of the portfolio. But I wasn't worried about that, because I wasn't willing to do this and not maintain the exposure to the upside, because Enphase has earnings coming up and it's a very volatile stock. So I sold the 11,000 shares at 115. The average cost on those shares was 139 and some change. So I legitimately lost money there, but I had already made about $300,000 in premiums along the way. So at the end of the day, it was still a net positive. And I wanted to just sleep better at night, because I feel like there was just way too much exposure to a stock that is just so erratic. And I want to give a shout out to my wife. She did a lot of research on Tesla for me when we were building out the Tesla position. And she saw that I was building out the Enphase position. And she told me at least a handful of times, I don't even think we need Enphase, because we have exposure to this space via Tesla. And Tesla is a surefire play in 5 years, where this one, there's a lot of regulation that could affect it. She told me about some stuff going on in California that I just glossed over. There was some laws that were like, it doesn't make it as sexy to have solar. And my wife knows how to dig. She's a economics major from Stanford. I don't dig like she does. Right. And she was just like, there's some serious headwinds that this company is going to face. And if they don't lower interest rates pretty quickly, this thing could go to 70, $80 a share. And it happened for us while we were in the portfolio. But I'm like, wow, I'm TJ the Wheel deal. I'll figure it out. I'll manufacture the win. And I was able to. But it did cause a lot of stress along the way, and a lot of those "I told you so" looks at dinner. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was the hardest part of the thing was having to look at her and be like, "Shit, I could have listened to you, baby, and we'd be scot free right now." How'd
you deal with that when she gave you the "I told you so" look? Did you just look away?
Bro, she's cool. I mean, my wife, she's diamond hands, bro, because she doesn't look at this shit every day. So it's just kind of like, whatever, she didn't think the company's going to go out of business or anything. She thinks this thing will go to $200 or $300 eventually, but we don't know when. Whereas we have something in Tesla that we know for sure is going to happen, or at least we feel, right? Nobody's ever 100% right, as far as on the front end. So
this is the cool part about like people who have wives or girlfriends that don't care about the stock market, because they don't know if a stock like falls 40%. Like they're never gonna know, right? But internally, you're looking at all this bleeding, but you're like, oh, my wife doesn't even know what Nvidia is,
Yeah, so freed up all that money, Amit, and now here we are. So now here we are. We're sitting in a situation where there's a crap load of cash in the portfolio, and also there was $250,000 more dollars injected into the portfolio. There's an additional $750,000 coming in the next month or so. So we're going to have quite a bit of buying power, and that's why I wanted to increase this segment for you helping me with $1 million if you were legit open to it.
Yeah, I think so. So we're going from 500 to $1 million. I think that works. I mean, the reason I say yes to this is because although it's more money, we've put up the results. We've done well. So it's not like, we've hit so many roadblocks that it would be scarier to add more money. If anything, we could just exacerbate the premiums that we're getting, the returns, if we have more capital.
Exactly. So now it just becomes a question of how do you feel about the plays, because you don't have to play small now. Because I think the biggest thing that was hard for me when I first started doing this was not treating this the way that I would treat it when I had a small account.
Right.
Because when you have small accounts, you tend to do kind of like stupid shit because you're trying to figure out how to have a big account, right? So whenever you have a bigger account, the first rule is like, don't lose money first and foremost. And also, you want to like be very, very strategic. You want to take on higher quality companies, etc. So is there any other plays that you've been looking at that maybe weren't in the price range before, and now maybe they could be? Back to the cybersecurity space, who's the best in class? Is it CrowdStrike or is it Palo Alto?
I feel like it's freaking CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike right now, guys, 307. I just don't know enough about them to even think of having a position outside of they're really important. But I don't like the other names, dude, because the other names to me, I don't know about why Fortinet is a winner in 5 years or Centennial One. Now, maybe it's the whole industry, but like AMD is very different from Nvidia. And although AMD is a winner, it's not doing anything close to what Nvidia has done in terms of results. So I don't want to pick the AMD,
No, I hear you. I had, I don't know, I think it was like 1,500 shares of AMD at one point. I don't know if I had them in this portfolio. I think it was in the Weebles. It might have been this one. I don't know. I don't think it was, though. No, it wasn't. I didn't have the conviction to do it over here. So it was on Weebles. I think it was like 1,500 shares in the 70s, and I sold them at like 100, and I felt really good about it.
Yeah.
So it ended up, being stupid as usual. So it ran, but I was just like, I thought it was kind of overvalued when I sold it. So I just when I feel that way, I don't FOMO back in, dude. I'm just like, I don't understand the space enough. It's smarter than I am. Let me just go play over here with the Bitcoin miners. I don't really understand either, but I know how to make a lot of money with it. So I stayed in my lane.
Can we, now that we have more capital, and I don't know if this play makes any sense, but I just want to look at the premiums to see if there's anything there. Can we go to Tesla? Because it's maybe going to 230s. It's at 241 right now. I know you're doing a ton of stuff with Tesla, so it doesn't make sense at all to sell puts on Tesla.
Oh, this is exciting. Okay, yeah. So what I've got with Tesla is I've got put credit spreads already. So essentially, when I do a put credit spread, guys, this is a feeler bet. This is now a Wheeler's 201, if you will. So put credit spread is just when you sell a put and you buy a put at the same on the same expiration day, and it takes a lot less capital to make a pretty decent return if you want to look at your return on your capital. But these things could really, really blow up on you. So to me, it's just a feeler bet where I'm just like, if it gets challenged, I'm going to close the long put out for a profit, and then I'm going to take the short put and I'm going to turn it into a regular cash secure put and manage it. So I feel like I already have 5 cash secure puts at 210. It's just not on paper yet because I haven't closed out the long put, if that makes sense.
Right. So for people that don't know what a put credit spread is, we're not going to go super deep into it, but you buy a put, you sell a put on top of each other. If the stock gets down, like let's say Tesla goes to 205s, the buy side of your put prints money because you bought a $205 put, the stock went down, you make money. The sell side of your put loses money, but if you have the capital or the collateral to buy 500 shares in this case, because you have 5 sells, you can just turn it into a regular cash secured put.
Right. So I feel like I'm already playing Tesla to position myself for the dip, if you will, because of those put credit spreads. And then we also have a pretty big position in it already. I think it's 2,500 shares in this portfolio. Yeah, 2,500 shares at 196. So not the best entry point, but it's kind of worked out because of the whole 8/8 robo taxi and the robots are coming and everything else, right?
Yeah.
And then we have covered calls at 225 that I had kicked out to January of 2025, and now I'm starting to look a little bit smarter because those were underwater substantially, and every day that Tesla comes back down to earth a little bit, I'm in a better position, and now we're already below our break even, so we wouldn't officially be leaving any money on the table here, which is kind of nice. Or we might be, because I have to consider the rolls. So let's say my break even is probably in the 240 range, so we're like right there,
right?
And it's very manageable. It's very manageable. I would not be opposed to selling more cash secured puts on Tesla. I think we'd have to look at the chart and stuff to see when would be an opportune time to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Today might not be the best time to do it.
But that's definitely one for the radar for sure. How do you feel about Tesla though? Because Donald Trump made some comments, or so I heard anyway. Because I watched 5 minutes about it, and I was expecting to hear my ear, but I'm still here. I didn't hear any of that stuff in China, and he was very calm. He was very maybe he talked to Jesus whenever he thought his life was.
I thought he was very somber. I thought he felt a little there was a little bit of humility there, knowing that he could have died, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, I think Tesla. What was I going to say? I think Tesla. Oh, I think Elon knows that the IRA subsidies going away will hurt Rivian. It won't hurt Tesla. Even Elon was tweeting yesterday. People think the IRA is why Tesla's growing. It's that's just not true. I also think Elon doesn't give a shit about selling cars anymore. I think he wants to sell rides on FSD. And so I think he loves Trump for whatever other reasons he loves Trump, and he doesn't care about, it's not 2018 where they got to sell 300,000 cars a quarter just for the street to not tank them. Now, if they can get FSD to work, the cars do not matter. They're just not as important,
Yeah, because isn't Elon, or I read something, is he pumping 45 million a week or a month or something crazy amount towards
Elon wants Trump. Elon wants Trump. That is for sure.
So I don't know the reasoning behind that. I can't really wrap my mind around it. But he is the CEO of Tesla, and he's steering the ship, if you will, or captaining the ship that we're on, or that I'm on. It's whatever. If he's not worried about it, I'm not either. So yeah. It's just, I think that he would know if it wasn't good for him, and he'd let us know. He's not bashful with his words. So
right.
Yeah, I like that play. Is there anything else that you've considered?
Can we look at your Celsius play? Because this is one I considered, but you're already in this one.
Yeah.
Celsius at 45-ish or 30-ish or 35-ish gets exciting. So today it's below 50.
So I have 25 puts. So it's a pretty big play. It's $4,500 times 25 of them. And I looked at the chart, and I was like, this is a very critical level. If it goes below this, 30s, here we come. You know what I mean? So, and I was like, and this thing's gotten its ass kicked, right? Since it went to $90 or whatever it was. So it tied up the money and picked up 4,750. So that was on July the 15th, a few days ago. If we wanted to do it again right now, they would pay us $58.25 for doing the same, for entering into the exact same contract. How do you feel? I know that you're familiar with this play because y'all talked about it a couple times on Finance Junkies back in the day. How do you feel about Celsius at these levels? Because I feel like it's actually kind of reasonable. I don't want to say it's cheap at 45, but it's reasonable at 45, considering that, yes, they're not going to grow 100% year over year again. That's not sustainable for anybody, but they are going to grow, and they don't have, a lot of debt or any of that stuff. They have a pretty clean book, actually, a balance sheet.
Yeah, at 45, it gets very attractive to me. So I think these puts make sense. Do we get to 45? I think I don't think if people would really have to stop believing in sales. I mean, that's a 50% drawdown from April, which is tough. So either their numbers are going to be so bad that it's justified, or this is going to be one of the best dips over the next year and a half. And so I guess we'll see.
So can we go back to this real quickly, Amit?
Which, SoFi?
No. How do you feel about that move? Because that was the biggest move that I've had to make on the channel whenever I in a way accepted defeat on my entry point on Enphase. Now, granted, I still have the long exposure with the 50 leaps that I bought before I did it. But how do you feel about Enphase? Because I feel like you were kind of like just a moderator when they would have those discussions on the channel before. But I never really got like your take on it. Like I feel like you kind of like stayed on the sidelines intentionally, perhaps.
Yeah, the only problem with Enphase is that they're so conducive to the rate environment, and rates obviously went up. So I feel like if rates come down, theoretically, they should get momentum, and I think they bottomed out last earnings in terms of the guidance raises. However, with Trump, it kind of switches things because now if solar is not as important, clean energy is not that important, there's no more subsidies, that might be an issue. I was talking to Chris and Adam last night, and they were just like, dude, like paying an extra $400 a month just to save $100, or like paying an extra upfront $8,000 to save a couple hundred a month. Like it's the average consumer doesn't like rationalize that as something that's so important.
All right.
So I don't think Enphase stops growing or anything like that. I just don't. I was never the most. That's why when Carlos was like, "Why are you more excited over Palantir or over Enphase?" I was like, "Because it's fucking Palantir, and you're talking about solar panels over like AI."
All
so,
right.
yeah, I think it's a good move you made. I think it's a really good move. You came out pretty much break even with the premiums you collected. Maybe lost a little money, but now all that capital can be
redeployed. We made almost 6 figures.
Okay, so then there was not even a loss there, right?
No, and then I still have the leaps. I still have leaps that I can sell covered calls again. So I have the equivalent of 5,000 shares still.
Yeah, I think it was a smart move. And now you got what, a couple or 1.5 million or something to work with?
1.2 and some change out of it. And then I also trimmed the position on. I didn't trim the position on SoFi, but I restructured it. So I restructured.
Can you that? What'd you do with SoFi?
So I said. Dude, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, dude. So I only have 150,000 shares of SoFi instead of 170. Don't crucify me, SoFi junkie, Sophian soldiers. We're okay. I bought 400 more leaps at 10. So I have 1,000 leaps. I've got covered calls at $8, 1,000 of them. So there's still 50,000 shares that are unencumbered, and I have not sold covered calls against these leaps. So if there is ever going to be a squeeze on SoFi, I'd be pretty okay if it happened right here, right now, because I have essentially 150,000 shares with the leaps that they can go up and to the right, and they're not going to cause me a lot of stress.
If SoFi went to $9 in, let's say after earnings, $9.50, let's say $9.50, would you sell?
I would probably close leaps.
You close all your leaps.
I'm long these shares. These 150,000 shares, I'm long. But I would look at these leaps right here, because these leaps would probably be printing, right?
Yeah.
So I think, these are my lottery leaps. This is Jesse Dow stuff where you buy shit out of the money and you're either going to make a lot or look like an idiot.
But by 2026, $10, I just don't feel like that's a lottery.
So it's 10, but it's really 11.84 because you got to consider the premium that you pay to be in this.
Correct. That is fair.
Fair. So 11.84, I think that, Chris Hager will make a case that SoFi should be 11.84 today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's
I'm not quite in that camp because they haven't done a good job of selling the narrative that they're a technology company that has a bank.
Yeah.
Because that's the narrative that has yet to happen, right? That's my bull case for SoFi. That if they have a moat, that's the moat, is that they're a technology company that happens to have a bank.
Right.
But I don't really know exactly how solid Galileo is, because they have Chris Lapointe saying that they're onboarding dozens of clients, etc. But I don't know who these clients are. I don't know if they're still in talks with the top 5 bank or not. There's just a lot of stuff that I don't know. And I don't think any of us do. So I feel like that technology narrative hasn't played out yet. But this is what I would start doing is probably selling some aggressive covered calls, because you like to play this game, right? Like this little game where you simulate returns.
Yes.
Dude,
Yes.
it's kind of fun, bro. It's kind of fun, but let's just say that Noto gets his golden parachute. Where is it, at $45?
No, I think it's at 25. That's when he starts.
No, the big golden parachute is at 45.
Okay.
So you go all the way over here to 45. It starts looking pretty retarded pretty quickly.
That would be 2 million in profit.
Now, and then you go all the way to the end. So it's still, about a $2 million play, give or take. And then we can look at, okay, well, cool. How much money did you spend, right? So you look at 24, 19, 33, and 33. So you're talking about, I don't know, was that $100,000 or so?
100 to 2 million if Noto gets this sucker to 45 by 2026. That's going to be a little hard, but
yeah, but if he screws it up and I turn it into $1 million, you know what I'm saying? That's not a bad deal. And then I still have the shares that I'll manage, and I have 50,000 shares that I haven't sold covered calls on. I mean, dude, I'm in a situation right now that I'm usually not in.
So let me ask you this question. And everyone, TJ's YouTube is in the chat, so please make sure to check him out. Now that you have all this extra capital, what stock is going to become the cornerstone of the portfolio?
Real good question. So I already have the top 5 set up. It's already there. Now I'm just changing the order. So these are the 5 stocks that I landed on right here. So we can do this right here. I'll go a little smaller. So those are the top 5. I landed on SoFi, Tesla, PayPal, Palantir, Riot. I did this on my channel. Admit, if you were TJ the Wheel Deal, just, better looking version, smarter, master debater. And I said, master debater, perverts. So, what would be your order? Because I'll tell you what my order is. This is not the order. This order will not hold up. And I'm putting it in equity. There's 1.1 in SoFi. There's 606 in Tesla. There's 593 in PayPal. There's 582 in Palantir, and there's 342 in Riot. So that's the current order, but I'm telling you that order is going to change as far as largest to smallest.
Okay, so if I had to reorganize largest, smallest in terms of equity, I think you might agree with me. Mine would be Palantir, Tesla, SoFi, PayPal, Riot.
Right on. So eventually mine is going to be 1 million Tesla and 1 million Palantir. So they're going to be like neck to neck, like 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go with the stock that's actually buying back their shares, which is PayPal. And then it's going to be SoFi and Riot's my Riot may end up being number 2 initially, just because it's a Bitcoin play right now, but this is not an investment. This is a swing trade. I totally expect to get out of these shares before the next crypto winter, and then I'm not scared to try to rebuild this position down the road again, because this thing's, it's just made a shitload of money for us. Sold 200 more cash secure puts on it today. So so these 2, Tesla and Palantir, would be $1 million positions. PayPal is, I don't know that I'm going to increase the shares, because I also have 100 leaps on PayPal.
Yeah, the thing about PayPal is, although I think it's deeply undervalued, it's just not an exciting thing to be a cornerstone of a portfolio. But
yeah, but I'm just looking for like stability as well, right? And then the premiums are pretty damn juicy. Like I've got just to give you an idea, I've got 200 calls expiring on 8/2.
Yeah.
At $65 that are not being challenged, and those bad boys just brought in $24,800.
Dude,
for 2 weeks out. So, I like boring that makes $24,800 for 2 weeks.
That was early July. That's when you sold that call. Oh, no, you
sold it July the 15th.
So hold on, you got paid $24,000 for a $65 call.
Yeah, so now you're looking at PayPal a little differently, aren't you, fucker?
Well, why are these people paying so much for that?
Well, you got to keep in mind it's 10,000 shares of PayPal.
That's true.
There's power in the volume, guys. If everybody's like, why would you invest in a fund or whatever? It's because people want access to this leverage. That's why people do it. And that's why funds like mine that get, 30, 40% a year going on, starting the start of my 5th year now. That's why we have business. That's why I have a job, is because we're able to pull a shitload of money together, and we're able to play over here in a level that is not causing a lot of stress. But would you agree that 24,000 a week, every 2 weeks, is going to add up pretty nicely? And we're talking about PayPal. That's pretty damn boring. Been stuck at these levels going on probably a year or two.
Yeah, this is the exciting part about selling covered calls. I know a lot of people got burned on Tesla and Palantir in the past couple of weeks, and Nvidia in earlier in the year, because of, they kept running. But when you find a stock like PayPal that could it go to 65 in 2 weeks? Sure, but the sentiment is so down, but the premiums are still up there because of the volume you have. This is where selling covered calls is one of the most amazing jobs on the planet.
It is, and I can always manage these if they go in the money, like I just roll them. It's whatever, dude. And I also own these shares for under $60, so it's not the end of the world. And I also don't have the fear that PayPal is going to run $100 tomorrow.
Right. Like if it gets to 65 and you roll it to 65 for another couple of weeks or 70 and increase the, you're going to get paid to wait. And historically it'll come down. If it doesn't come down, all right, you sell and you make $6 a share, which is not bad.
It's whatever. And then I can just turn around and sell cash secure puts again. That's the part that people forget to say. Like there was an old guy named Steve Harvey. And now the rest of the story. He was a guy, he was like a guy on radio, and he would do the news or whatever. I think his name was Paul Harvey or Steve Harvey, something like that. I'm showing my age. But he would always say, now the rest of the story. So, dude, if you have shares called away from you, there's not a law that says you can't turn around and sell cash secured puts on the same underlying. And you can go after that premium, that money that you left on the table. Eventually, they're probably going to come back down unless they have their meta moment or CrowdStrike. There's some stocks that do not come down, right? And that happens. That's fair. That's a fair argument. But dude, I've had several shares called away from me in my career, and I ended up doing better, selling cash secured puts to try to get in. And then I ended up getting in at a better price than where I sold the shares to begin with. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't just act like Palantir went from 20 to 30, dude. It does this kind of stuff. It's not just like a straight line to the top, if that makes sense.
Right. And while it's oscillating, that's where people like you come in and make a lot of money. Yeah.
Exactly. Good show, man. What have you learned so far, Amit? I mean, how do you feel about everything, dude? I mean, this segment's obviously done well because people like seeing real life trading and stuff, and you have a much larger platform than I do. But what's your temperament? How do you feel? Because one thing that I notice is you're a lot less stressed out doing these trades now than when we first started.
Yeah. I guess it comes with time, right? It's just like, because you look at every scenario, as you mentioned, up, to the right, down, or stays flat. And if you know how to manage it, it's like when you study for a test. Like when you go into a test and you really know you studied for it, like no question is going to surprise you. When you didn't study, it's like you're nervous. A lot of this is not really being that nervous when you know exactly how you're going to navigate the situations.
Absolutely, man. You want to do your word of the day?
Let's do it. So word of the day. And by the way, TJ's YouTube and Twitter in the chat and description. So please make sure everyone to follow him there. And he goes live every day on his channel discussing this even more in depth. Frabjous. Elegant and superb. Frabjous. All right, TJ. I think our segment is very frabjous, I would say. It's such a weird word, dude. Elegant. Frabjous. All right. That's what we got. Thank you, TJ. Are you doing anything over the weekend?
We're going to the Caribbean next week on Wednesday.
That's like the summer vacation, right?
So some place called Anguilla. It's like a British something.
I know Anguilla. Yeah.
Colony or some shit. I don't know, dude. I'm not well traveled like that. So we're going there. So my wife's got me. Dude, my wife betrayed me, bro. I'm Team Polo. For those of you that follow the channel, I have like a massive Ralph Lauren collection. Dude, I looked on my little, I don't know what it's called, like the drawers in the office, in the closet. I got shit where my clothes is, and I saw 5 Peter Millar shirts there, and I felt like she stuck me with a knife, like a sword in my heart, bro. She wants you to wear some fucking dude named Peter Millar. And we literally argued about it, bro. We literally argued about it. I'm like, dude, I'm the fucking horse. You know what I'm saying? You over here with some bullshit. There's like a crown in the back of this fucking shirt, dude. So fucking dappy. But she said she likes the collars better. So that's what we're doing. We're fighting over fucking clothes this week.
She's dressing you up, dude. She's making you look good for the picture.
Nah, I'm telling you, bro. But I feel like I'm betraying Ralph Lauren. I don't know the guy, but you know what I'm saying?
I love it.
Yeah, so we're just gonna hang out, dude. We're just gonna hang out because we're gonna have a pretty busy time. But I should still be able to hop on the segment depending on whether or not the Ritz has because I still got to talk to the providers and stuff, right? Because whenever I travel like that, there's obviously security concerns.
Yeah.
So I have to just make sure that everything's solid, and we'll be good to go.
All right. Sounds good. Enjoy Anguilla. It'll be fun. Thank you again, TJ.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So we got Palantir pumping, folks. 29.16 right now, back above 29. The entire market is not really up, but Palantir is. Nvidia is down. SoFi is down. Robinhood is up 2.63%. Netflix back up. It was at 638. Amazon slightly green. Snowflake slightly green. Eli Lilly's up 2%. They fell because of the GLP Roche pill that came out the other day. S&P is down. Bitcoin 65.6. Not bad to see Bitcoin getting a bit of a pump there. But Palantir, dude, Palantir, like, again, on a day like this where the broader market is red, S&P, QQQ, Nvidia, this is why Chris had to close his puts, because Nvidia falls and Palantir is just going the opposite direction. Palantir is moving. MicroStrategy should be up. Is that up? MSTR. Yeah. Wow. 7% on micro. So there you go. I think Robinhood should probably be closer to 2450, but market's down. Bitcoin's up, so that's helping Robinhood get into this 2350 range, but I think we get closer to 24s as the market gets a little better. But Bitcoin, if Bitcoin just keeps going, then that probably just helps Robinhood overall. Palantir 2920. Again, you know, this is why Q2 earnings is going to be so important, because literally either it's tanking back to 25 or 24 and the thing obviously ran up too much based on the growth, or the growth exceeds expectations and we're into the 30s and now we're playing in a new era, or we stay flat and we justify the multiple, not enough to tank, not enough to really go up. And out of those three scenarios, like, if gun to my head, I'm actually leaning towards the second one, which is that it might go up after earnings. And I know that's crazy. I know this is euphoric. I know the valuation doesn't justify it, but this price action is unseen in Palantir, dude. This would, like, and given I've been here for a couple of years and I've been like the holding these levels, given the growth rate that we're at right now, you can't even just blame AI, because like other AI stocks are doing bad, right? So it's not just like, oh, there's an AI hype here. It has to be something deeper than that. And I think it's the market really starting to recognize that Palantir has growth built in, even if the growth is not there yet. Crowdstrike 313, that's down 8.5% right now, but it's recovered from 270. So nice recovery from 270 to 312 on Crowdstrike. Palantir right here at 29.20 on the day. Amit, do you think I get screwed on my 726 Palantir $30 covered calls? 30 is very psychological. I think it's going to be hard to cross that in the next week. If that happens, I would just roll, keep 30 going into August 2nd and see if you can get out of it as the volatility goes to the downside. But I don't know, dude. I like at this point, crossing 30 doesn't seem crazy, but I'm also wondering what is the catalyst to like really get us to the next. And outside of earnings, there hasn't been any catalyst really for the past month. Yeah, we got some contracts here and there, but not like, not NHS type contract. Like it's just been, I feel, people realizing Palantir is a company and they just want exposure. And maybe those people are more institutional than retail, and that's why it's doing its thing. But Q2, we might be very humbled, dude. We might get slapped in the face and get humbled. It has happened for various tech stocks in their journeys, so I can't be overly confident that it wouldn't happen to Palantir. We've seen what's happened with Tesla and, Amazon and Nvidia back a year ago. Or we really are just so early to the story, and this is going to get fun. Crowdstrike, I want to get an update on what's going on with Crowdstrike and how the situation has navigated. Seems like things are still underwater in the world of Crowdstrike, or in terms of what they're affecting. Some places are coming back to life. Charles Schwab definitely is not doing the best right now. I just asked on Twitter. A lot of people are saying that Schwab is down for them. I know some of you in the chat are also saying that Schwab is down. I don't know if that has to do with CrowdStrike. I would imagine that has some implication on CrowdStrike, but I guess we'll see. Let's go to CNBC, and then I'll try to get an update on CrowdStrike.
Asia Pacific, and generally most analysts, David, are taking their targets up on Netflix this morning.
Yeah, and the stock is reacting ever so slightly in the positive direction. Again, the questions about growth from the ad-supported tier and how much that's going to pick up. The new ad tech platform, they say they're sort of testing in Canada and will introduce and roll out in the U.S. next year. I mean, they are the dominant provider when it comes to streaming. There's no doubt about that. But there are some questions, as Mike brought up earlier, in terms of the multiple and the growth rate that you would expect, of course, from a fundamental perspective, investors are thinking about.
He called it mature. It's also been an outperformer on the year, so there were high hopes going into the quarter on Netflix. Netflix shares up 1%. We're going to continue to have updates for you all morning long and all day long on today's global outage. Still ahead on Money Movers as we dive into the Netflix quarter. We're going to also talk to the CEO of Fifth Third Bank on earnings. All of that ahead. Stay with us.
So I'm seeing some updates on CrowdStrike that they are resolving a few areas. Here's one update here. Some places are getting back online though, and some Microsoft computers are starting to get back at certain companies.
That Microsoft is putting up. Joining us now is Connor Teskey. He's Brookfield Renewable Power and Transition CEO, also president of Brookfield Asset Management. And if you don't know, that's a global alternative asset manager, about $925 billion in assets across renewables, infrastructure, real estate, credit, and, well, a lot more. Connor, great to have you. Would love to just start off on the subject of the day. You heard the Secretary of Transportation talking about infrastructure. You certainly are financing and putting up a lot of, for example, electricity power generation. How much do you think about it? And give me your thoughts about today's outage as a result of this content upgrade, so to speak, from CrowdStrike.
Today is a great example of our world is getting increasingly more digitized and more interconnected. And that is fueling a really major investment theme across our business, which is the huge amounts of capital flows that are going towards increasing the resiliency of supply chains, the onshoring of critical goods and services. This is an investment theme that we've been investing in for years at scale, and one that we think has years to run going forward. And shocks like today really reinforce that point.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about something we have been mentioning many times here on air, which is the growing need for increased electricity generation as a result of AI usage and the growth of data centers. You know, just put it in some perspective for our viewers. How much demand for power is there going to be as a result of the addition of AI around the world? What kind of numbers are we talking about that's going to be needed to help build the grid?
So let's come at it from this perspective. Today, as Brookfield, as one of the largest owners of data centers around the world and one of the largest owners and managers of renewable power generation, we have a unique vantage point into the capital flows and the growth opportunities in providing critical inputs as the largest tech companies around the world look to grow their AI and cloud service businesses. And the demand we are seeing is tremendous. It's demonstrated by our transaction with Microsoft, where we'll look to invest $10 billion to build out low-cost, clean power for them, which will directly provide input and growth runway into data centers that will be used to grow their AI capabilities.
2025 might be the year of energy as well. We were talking about that yesterday. So if anything, the IT outage we're seeing today just goes to show that energy is going to have to be built up to keep up with the demand, just like IT security needs to keep up with the demand as well. Let's listen to Dan Ives talk a little bit more about tech. We heard him in the morning talk about CrowdStrike. Let's see his thoughts on Microsoft as well.
Cybersecurity industry at this scale. So this is a bit unprecedented.
In terms of the way we were talking more broadly about what happens next and the sort of larger implications of our reliance on the cloud. Do you think this changes anything about the way systems are set up more broadly, about the third parties that are used by a Microsoft, about even the idea of consolidation in these spaces?
Yeah, Andrew, after this happens, changes will have to happen because the scale of something like this, there will be changes in terms of third-party implementation updates, not just for CrowdStrike, but across the industry, because this is unprecedented. And it's not just black eye for CrowdStrike, black eye for the cybersecurity industry.
When you say changes, self-regulated changes, or do you think the government gets involved?
I think it will be self-regulated, but the chances that CrowdStrike gets called to the Beltway for some hearing is probably pretty high.
Yeah, Dan, when you say changes that happen, you mean Microsoft and other companies aren't going to let third parties come in, third-party vendors, and do cybersecurity for them, that they will do more of this in-house?
Well, I think they're going to have to change in terms of the process on the updates, and then just take a step back. Google likely, probably acquires Wiz, and probably one of the biggest cybersecurity acquisitions is reported by the Wall Street Journal. I think this is just going to push Microsoft further and further to potentially trying to do a cybersecurity acquisition themselves. They've been around the sort of edges there,
right.
But this is something within Redmond. They don't just, go next week like nothing ever happened.
But that meaning that, how do things happen now? Was this a third-party vendor that was allowed to do the update? They sent it internally and it happened, and nobody at Microsoft realized that there was this problem or bug in it, and you think that has to be then happening internally, which is why they would want to purchase one of these companies? And if so, who do they purchase?
I think on the Microsoft side, look, third-party updates are common. That's happening on a minute-to-minute basis. In terms of Microsoft, we've talked about they're going to have to look across the industry. Cybersecurity has been something that, normally they have third parties, and they will continue to have third parties, Palo Alto, Zscaler, and others. But I do believe when something like this happens, you look at names like a Varonis, a Tenable,
right.
CyberArk. Those are names that to us kind of are front and center in terms of, potential acquisition candidates.
Dan, is your sense that this makes it more likely or less that regulators would allow a transaction between a Google and Wiz, for example?
So on that extent, I would view that it would actually be more likely, because I think it shows some of the dangers, in terms of what we see from some of these third-party updates. I also think obviously it depends on the regulatory environment. But this is something that actually bodes more positive for M&A between big tech and cyber rather than the opposite, because it shows here, and this will be a moment that we'll remember in tech, for decades, to make sure that something like this never happens again. From the gold standard, CrowdStrike. That's the ironic thing.
Dan, can I ask you a question? And maybe it's my naivete. For reasons that seem inexplicable to me, these things don't seem to happen to, knock on wood, to Apple devices. Why do you think that is?
It's the nature of the Mac and Apple ecosystem, because of those updates, because everything is controlled within the four walls of Apple Park. And that's why they have 2.2 billion iOS devices. But also remember, Apple very rarely plays in enterprise. Microsoft does. So Apple's less exposed on the enterprise, much more obviously on the consumer side. But that's also why Apple, Cook, Cupertino are in the Mount Rushmore, along with Microsoft and others.
Hey, Dan, we do have some video of George Kurtz. He's the CEO of Crowdstrike, and he was just on the Today Show. Here's what he had to say to the Today Show.
The system was sent an update, and that update had a software bug in it and caused an issue with the Microsoft operating system. And we identified this very quickly and remediated the issue. And as systems come back online, as they're rebooted, they're coming up and they're working. And now we are working with each and every customer to make sure that we can bring them back online.
Dan, I guess working with each and every customer is going to take a while. I'm still looking at the balloon screen of death, haven't gotten a call from them just yet. I guess this is the obvious, though. This is what you were talking about, that they are going to have to look at ways to change that system. The idea that they were able to upgrade the system, it had a bug in its own software. You're right. Microsoft's going to have to get their arms around this too.
And also, look, Kurtz is probably, in my opinion, one of the best tech CEOs in the world. So if there's one person that can navigate this, it's Kurtz and CrowdStrike. But this is going to be a Mount Everest-like uphill battle in terms of what they're dealing with here. I mean, the global nature, airports, transportation, DC subway, and others. There's a long road ahead here. We remain bullish on the sector, but now we need to see how this all plays out for CrowdStrike over the.
Palantir is running. So you got Dan Ives talking about a little bit of fear potentially on CrowdStrike, but cybersecurity in general matters. Palantir 29.53. So again, guys, it's just really incredible. Market's red, Palantir's green. It's performing inverse to the market. Nvidia's recovering a little bit back at 120. It was at 119. Tesla taking a little bit of a nosedive right here. I mean, down 2% is not crazy, but Tesla definitely not at that 270 level that it was at before. This is why, you know, this is the thing about covered calls. I remember I made a post on Twitter about like, hey, covered calls on Tesla are good. And everyone was like, yeah, but the shares will get called away. It's like, dude, you don't know that, you know, you don't know when they're going to get called away. And if anything, you could say, well, this thing is up 80%. Maybe it's going to take a little bit of a break. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And so those covered call premiums will be printing. But granted, I also agree. I mean, like if it held up its momentum, yeah, the shares would get called away. Which is why some of this game about wheeling is also just taking risks. Like you're not going to always get it right. Like at 250, you might think the 285 covered call is amazing, and then maybe it goes to 300, maybe it goes to 230, like it looks like it's doing right now. But to make money, you got to take somewhat of a risk, right? It's just an educated risk on, all right, how much has it run? You know, where's the RSI? Like, is there any indication I can look at for where do I think it's going to go? And then what's the catalyst? We got earnings coming up. Either they crush earnings and this thing goes higher, or Elon really doesn't paint the picture as well as he needs to paint it in the context of where the FSD story is going, which I think he will. But the question is going to be what the sentiment is on those numbers. Elon did just tweet right now, there are only two options. Of those options, Trump is obviously better. End of story. And he tweeted that underneath Jason's post about Trump and Biden. So let me ask you guys a question here. Is it good for the stock, or not good for the stock, but do you care as a shareholder that Elon is this explicit about his support about Trump? Forget if you're a Trump supporter or you're not a Trump supporter. Do you think the CEO, like George Kurtz can't say this? Definitely not today, because right, he's not Elon, right? Other CEOs really, like Sundar is definitely never going to say anything like this. But do you think this is okay for Elon to just come out and be as explicit as he is around his support? I personally think Elon's worked up to the point where he doesn't care anymore, and he's rich enough and he's successful enough. Tesla now 241, where people will buy a stock regardless of what he says. But I don't think every CEO has that luxury of doing that. Palantir 29.44 on the day. I don't own the stock, but this seems bullish just because it will show Trump probably won't try to kill Tesla. I agree. I think Elon knows he'll be fine. Did Amit already wheel with TJ? Yeah, we just did it 20 minutes ago, so you can rewind. You can see him. Someone says, I don't care. I like it. You know, it was funny. We were in New York yesterday. Shout out to Adam in the chat. We were in New York yesterday, and Adam, we came out of the restaurant, and we asked this lady to take a photo of us. And she was like in her mid-30s or whatever, and she took a photo of us. And then she's like, oh, what do you guys do? And we were like, oh, we talk about the stock market, and we met on YouTube. And she's like, oh, stock market. I have some Tesla. And then she pulled up her app, and she showed us her Tesla. And she had like $3,000 of Tesla or something. I told her to buy Palantir. I was like, you know what? You gotta just buy this stock and hold on forever. But basically, she was like, I bought Tesla, but I don't like Elon because I think he's racist. And me and Adam, we just look at each other. And so we were like, well, why do you think he's racist? And she was like, I just don't like him. I think he's right. And so we're like, but why are you investing in this racist guy's company then? It was such an interesting. And she was like, well, I've learned I have to take out my emotions from investing, even if I hate the guy who's running the company. And I'm just like, that's very interesting. I mean, replace racist with whatever other ad hom you want to attack Elon with, given he supports Trump and maybe you hate Trump, right? Like replace the adjective But it is very interesting that people are realizing they can't just get away with saying someone's racist if they want to make money. Because at the end of the day, you know, Tesla is a decent company, and investing in Tesla means that you really can't let your personal opinions of Elon stop you, you know, from engaging in that capital appreciation. But it is funny that people have the, you know, the unmitigated gall to be like, hey, this person sucks, but I'm going to support them financially because I want to make money. It's like, so their racism matters so little to you. You feel fine saying it. You get the dopamine effect of saying he's racist, but you care so little about his racism because you want to make money off of it, apparently. Rodney says, I don't like him equals racist. Dude, it was like, we were having a fun time. We were all laughing. It was fun. Like we stayed with, she had a couple friends there. And so we were just all talking for like, you know, 20, 30 minutes. And then finally she pulls out this racist line, and me and Adam just look at each other like the whole mood switched, dude. The whole, like what, like she brought race into the conversation, and we were talking about stocks. And then like the tone switched because she, like, it was obviously anti-Elon, even though we thought, you know, she has Tesla. Like, she can't hate Elon that much. I mean, the guy's, you know, making her some money. And it's like, no, I don't like Elon. He's racist. I don't appreciate anything he does. Blah, blah, blah. All these other things she was saying about him. But I have my Tesla stock. It's just very interesting how people can rationalize this stuff. And this is the part personally I'm growing up older, and some of my worldviews are becoming you know, etched in me. And one of those worldviews is that I don't like hypocrisy. I really don't like hypocrisy. It's one of the things that I can't stand as I get older. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it as congruently as I can do it for, you know? And it's like people that are ultra religious, but then you know how much stuff they're doing that is obviously against the ideals of the religion, like very explicitly against. It's like, that's also a type of hypocrisy that becomes very weird to me. It's like, you can't preach about this is how you need to live your life, but then you're doing really things that the Bible, whatever, the Quran, all this stuff, they just doesn't agree with at all. Objectively, it does not agree with. And so obviously it's very subjective, but I think if you're going to live a certain type of life, and I'm not saying if you're religious, you know, you're not going to contradict yourself, because everyone ends up leading into temptation and stuff. But there's some people that just feel they can do whatever they want and then say they lived a certain way. I can just say whatever I want about Elon, but I have no responsibility about feeling that Tesla, you know, it matters or not, because all I need to do is make my money. It's tough, dude. It's either if you're going to believe in a certain worldview, then believe in that worldview. The big example that I hate about it is the communism and capitalism stuff. It's like, you just cannot say you hate, you know, Amazon and Jeff Bezos, but you're ordering 17 different items, Palantir 2930, every day, and you're getting it in your 2-day shipping. And there's all this carbon dioxide and emissions that are going into the atmosphere for you to get your iPhone case on time, but you hate Jeff Bezos. Like, I can't stand it, dude. I just can't stand it. It's tough. So I don't know. I think it was very interesting to just get on the ground due diligence of someone who vehemently, I mean, she made it very clear she does not like Elon Musk, but then she wants her Tesla stock. And it's just like, all right, so I guess you like him enough to make money off him. And then the funny thing is, well, if you make money off Tesla, he makes money. So if he's so racist, his racism will only have more influence, because now he has more power because he has all this money, because you invested in his company, which is the hypocritical part, right? You are contributing to his so-called racism because you're contributing to his company, even if it's only a couple grand. Like, you are part of the problem. But people don't want to admit that, because that requires taking personal accountability. And that personal accountability, I guess, is like the actual existential problem we're having in society. Living Another Plane says, that's exactly the reason I won't vote Democrat. It's because the Dems are ruining democracy. Yeah, and you know, everyone can have their own different political opinion. You can think the Republicans are ruining democracy as well. There's all these different facets to it. I care less about people's political opinions. Again, you guys know I don't give a shit if you're Democrat or Republican. That is, I truly don't care. I care about what is the ideals that someone lives by. If they are Democratic or Republican or religious or not, or communist or capitalist, and do their actions match those ideals? Because as I get older, I just want to make sure my ideals are congruent with my actions. I can't really critique someone on buying a stock like Altria Group that sells cigarettes, right? If I, you know, like if I think cigarettes kill people Or I think it's unethical for people to smoke cigarettes, and I should like hold the companies accountable that are selling these cigarettes, then I can't ethically buy Altria Group, because they create the infrastructure and the systems for a lot of these companies to do what they need to do when it comes to selling Newports, Marlboro Lights, all that stuff. And it's like either I'm going to agree that like selling cigarettes is bad and I should unequivocally not support these companies, or I should ask myself, well, wait a second, if I think cigarettes are bad, why the hell am I buying Coca-Cola stock? Because I feel like Coca-Cola is definitely not as healthy for you either, even if cigarettes are a little bit more unhealthy. So like you run into these contradictions of like, well, wait a second. And also that lady, she works for a liquor distributor. So when she was talking about like, you know, I don't like Elon, and I was like, oh, and I brought up, I was like, yeah, that's why ESG investing is very hard. And she was like, what do you mean by that? I was like, well, you know, even the company you work at, you know, like you guys are selling liquor, like people are getting drunk. The people are committing sins if you're religious after they get drunk. Like in some religions, you're not even supposed to be drinking, right? Like you are contributing to a global system of alcohol that unequivocally will have some bad impacts, religiously bad impacts for people's mental health, like, you know, bad impacts for their livers. But you're making your money off of it because that's your job, right? Do you hold yourself accountable every day to feel like you're doing this bad thing? No, because you're not really doing a bad thing, because it's not really that bad, right? You can paint it as bad. You can paint Elon as racist, but at the end of the day, you're still going to invest because Tesla's doing something that's important. So I just feel like the internal contradictions and paradoxes become very difficult to resolve. Congruence was one of the word of the days. Yeah, probably a long time ago. It was one of the word of the days. Where in India are you going? Delhi, New Delhi. I'll be in New Delhi. It's going to be very fun. You can be pro-capitalist, but still believe in some consumer protections. 100%. Pro-capitalist does not mean that companies can do whatever they want. But pro-capitalist does mean you don't say Jeff Bezos is the most evil person on the planet for having $200 billion when you're contributing to all of his wealth. And you're contributing to his wealth because it's a valuable product and service that you want in your life, right? It's like these people only get wealthy if they build things that other people use. So it's not to say like we should have laissez-faire regulations and the government shouldn't be involved. Like obviously we need a ton of like FTC, all these organizations are important. It's just a question of philosophically, do you think that companies and rich people shouldn't exist? And that's the part where I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous. You know, it's just not the right way, I guess, I want to engage in life. Trump did have a speech yesterday. Trump spoke for 76 minutes. I didn't watch the full speech. I was on the train coming from New York last night, and I heard a little bit of it, Palantir 2949. I think it was a good speech. The one problem is it was really long, and I think some people felt like it could have been more impactful if it wasn't as long. But overall, it seems like the Republican Party is pretty united. Right now, top Democratic sources are saying Biden's dropping out this weekend. And it looks like that is indeed happening. If you were following some of my Twitter posts yesterday, we were posting about it. It does seem like it's not really going that well for Biden. And Obama, particularly last night, the New York Times reported, gave the top-down order that it's time for him to drop out. So I don't know. I guess we'll see if it ultimately plays out or not. But it will be. I think this weekend it will be interesting. They didn't announce it yesterday before Trump spoke, which, you know, people thought maybe they would try to steal his thunder. But I think by this Sunday we're going to know if Biden's staying in or not. And if it's Harris versus Trump, now the market's kind of reprice what this election cycle could look like. Do we rip on official dropping out news? Well, here's the thing: if Biden drops out and Harris is the nominee, the market has to price in, does Harris have a better chance of beating Trump than Biden? Because then the market will actually go down a bit. But if they think Harris has a worse chance of beating not Biden, Trump, then maybe we rip. And I don't know exactly if the market thinks Biden would have had a worse chance or Harris has a worse chance. I think they agree Harris has a worse chance, which means markets should go higher if she becomes the nominee. The question is, who's her VP? Who is her VP? That will be the question. Enjoy Delhi, bud. Yes, I'm gonna be excited, dude. I can't wait to go to India. I'm gonna be so excited to go to India. It's gonna be so much fun. Although we're missing this private jet ride, we're gonna enjoy India, dude. I want to travel next year, dude. I want to go to the UK and I want to meet you guys. Like, you know why I want to go to the UK? I came across okay. So for those who are from the UK in the chat, do you guys eat spuds? Which is like this fucking potato with cheese and beans and and stuff. Cause I came across this TikTok cart guy who makes like spuds. I think it's called like Jack Spuds. And I've gotten addicted to watching these stupid videos of him making the spud every day. And I'm like, dude, this is like, I want to go to UK. I want to go to the United Kingdom and get a spud and like, and be a Brit, dude. I want to be a legit Brit. So I really want to go to the UK. I think it would be so much fun. And I want to see you guys there as well. Yes, but not often. We don't oh, jack of potatoes. Yes, that's what it's called, a jack of potato. I think the store is called a spud. But it's a jack of potato. Jack Potato Spud Man. That's the name of the dude. Spud Man. Jacket Potato. Dude, I want to go to the UK so badly. It would be so much fun to be in the UK. Can we expect market open while you're in India? Yes. Market open for me will be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day. For you guys, it'll be the same time. Market close, definitely not going to happen. There's just going to be no way. And some days market open won't happen either because I don't know at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. every single day if I'm going to be good. But I'm going to try my hardest, dude. Like I already told my grandma, she has a room set up in the apartment. We have Wi-Fi. Like we should be good to go. I think there's a couple days where we're going to be out in like the mountains and shit. And those will be the worst days of my life. Like when we go to the mountains and I have no Wi-Fi, I'm telling you guys, those are going to be the hardest days of my life. As much as I'm going to be surrounded with family and friends and, you know, we're going to be able to play cards and stuff, like not having the internet, it will not, my mental health will be in a bad situation, dude. I'm just like being so honest right here. Not having access to Twitter or YouTube, it's not going to be fun. So I'm going to try to limit the amount of days I don't have access to the interwebs because I will legit go insane. I'm not like, I don't care. I just cannot handle that. Ronnie says the DNC has no choice but to choose Harris. Campaign finance laws mean the $400 million that was raised for Biden, Harris can only go to them. Yeah, it's definitely going to be Harris. They got to save the money. Now, who's the VP? Who is the VP? That's the question. Look at MSTR. Maybe it's Gretchen or maybe it's I think people were saying Adam Shapiro. He might be on the list. Wow, MicroStrategy up 9%. Is that because Bitcoin's up? Yeah, Bitcoin's trying to touch 66,000. 66,000 Dolores on Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, this is the channel I've been seeing, the Spud Bros. The Spud Bros. Look, let me show you. This dude I've been obsessed with on TikTok. I don't know why I'm obsessed with this guy, but this is why I need to go to the UK. This is why I have to go to the UK.
Morning. You all right?
Morning. You all right? Like I want to go to Britain and come back with an accent, bro.
Cheese and beans. Are you getting one? What would you like? 2 cheese and beans, yeah.
There's something so ASMR about how he builds this thing, dude. Look at this.
Having salt, butter, pepper on.
Look at this. And it's just a potato. It's not that special, but like it looks so cool. Look at how he cuts it, bro. Look at that. Gordon Ramsay type shit, bro. Look at that. Like I need to be there. I need to get one of these. Can I get the cheese and potato? Can I get the jacket pocket?
How long you been waiting for? 10. How long? 8 o'clock. Oh my God. So you've been here for nearly 3.5 hours. Are you having both cheeses on? Well, 3 cheeses. Where have you come from?
Preston.
Oh, so you're local. Get up to Preston.
Where have you come from? Like that accent, bro. It's so
both things, yeah? Right. We'll get this on. Have you found the thing, the potato yet? Have you? Are you winning Xbox as well? Have you seen that?
Yes.
So I just want to be in the UK, dude. I want to come to the UK. I feel like I need to, I feel like the UK is such an important part of the world. You guys, a lot of you guys are from the UK. Palantir 2938, 2340 on Robinhood. I feel like the United Kingdom is one of the places like London, right? Finance Central. I feel like I've got to be in the UK. I'm going to be in California again in September. Okay. So I'm going to be in California again in September. So maybe I'll come early, and people who are in California, we actually do a little meetup in California. So I'll definitely be in California in September. I know that. And then 2025, I want to travel a bit more and see some of you guys. Matt says, am I taking you to the undisclosed European location at the end of September a bit? Dude, I would love to have a meetup in the UK. That would be so cool. He's from the north, bro. Let's hear your London accent. I'm so bad at accents, dude. But like the thing about a British accent is I think it's like you're trying to like inflect certain syllables. Okay, so I'm going to say, how are you doing as a Brit? How are you doing? Right? It's like you don't say the you say the ya. Like, how are you doing? Like, I'm bad. I'm not good at it. Like, but like, it's like I want to learn it and I want to come back and I want to do the market open sounding like a Brit. I want to legit sound like a Brit all day. Ladies and gentlemen, the S&P is up 500 points. Like, I want it. Like, I want the British accent. I want to marry someone who has the British accent. Wow, that is awful. Yes, okay, that's bad. I know that's bad. It's not good. It's not the best. It's not the best. I get it, but amid pays Y2K traveling expenses just to try a $2 potato. Not even close. Oh my God. When you have an accent, you sound more important. Correct. That's the thing, dude. When you have an accent, you sound more important. You sound like you're relevant. You're like your life is exciting. And I feel like if I had an accent, it would just feel like that. Bro, say accent. See, you guys, so this right here. Accent. You see how I can't say the sh part of it? Like you guys, when I say Massachusetts or physician, you guys think like I'm trolling. Like I literally cannot say that. Like accent. You see how it sounds like shint versus sint? Accent. I don't naturally say accent. I say accent. Like if I'm being natural, it's accent instead of accent. This is the issue with my lips and my tongue and my vocal cords. I don't know what it is inside me, but I can't say it correctly. Like I can if I slow down and I just like sound it out. But if I'm like talking normally, it'll sound like accent. And it's very weird. It's very weird how that happens. Let's get an update on Biden here. So we were talking about Biden. Seems like we are due for an update this week on what's going on.
Developing news out of the Biden campaign. CNBC's Megan Casella in Washington with the details. Megan.
Hey, Sarah, there are a lot of moving pieces here to this Biden story. NBC News now reporting that members of the Biden family have been discussing what an exit from the campaign might look like. This is according to two people familiar with the discussions, saying that they're discussing an exit that would be on Biden's own timing and with a carefully calculated plan in place. They say they're weighing a few different considerations in making any plan, including the impact of the campaign on his health, his family, and the stability of the country. Now, this does not mean that any decision has been made for Biden to step aside. They're simply talking about a plan in case it's needed. But still, this is a major development from a president who has for weeks now been unwilling to consider any possibility of bowing out of this race, even as pressure for him to step aside has risen. Many Democrats, including some close allies, now believe Biden will be stepping aside. But in a signal of how in flux things remain, the Biden campaign was out with a memo just an hour ago saying that, quote, there was no plan in place for an alternative nominee. They were vowing that Biden was in it to win it and that he would become the official nominee in just a few weeks. So, guys, we'll continue to monitor this as it develops. But right now, increasing signs that the president himself could be seriously considering an exit here. Guys.
I mean, every hour it changes and it's all, there's so many leaks and so many people familiar with the matter. It's like, just get on with it. So, Megan, we've heard from a lot of prominent members of Congress from his own party. What about the donors? Have any of them come public? Are they putting pressure on him? Is he losing money in this process?
A whole lot of money, Sarah. So we've been hearing a lot from the donors. Many of them have come out publicly. A lot more of them are doing things privately. NBC was reporting yesterday that the Biden campaign is now expecting their money from big donors to come in at roughly 1/4 of the level of what they had been expecting for the month of July. So that shows you the money is just drying up. I'm hearing from people daily who say things are frozen, that the fundraisers reaching out are getting crickets back. A lot of them have simply stopped reaching out. And in one interesting development yesterday, when these these calls were really reaching a fever pitch, these calls for Biden to resign, there was actually a lot of optimism that I was told about sort of starting to chart a new way forward. I talked to one major Democratic fundraiser who said his phone had been sort of blowing up all day yesterday from people who weren't supporting Biden anymore, who were staying on the sidelines, but who were hearing the developments and were saying, hey, if this happens, call me. I'm in. I want to support whoever is the next candidate. So the donors are playing a very big role here.
Get out the popcorn for this weekend, folks. Get out the freaking popcorn. This weekend's going to be interesting. Going to be very interesting. I think he drops out, dude. I don't think you get the order from Obama to drop out and you stay in. Like, at some point, if the entire party turns against you, you're done. Like, you can't justify it. Also, here's something I want to show you guys. So here's a clip that every American citizen needs to see. Because it just gives you some context of what's going on. Here's Biden back in 2016 talking at a rally. Just listen to how he speaks. It's night and day, and this should let you know, like, yeah, the guy's trying to fight Father Time, and it's just tough 8 years later. So this was him back in 2016.
Strongest economy in the world. We have the most productive workers in the world. And given a fair shot, given a fair chance, Americans have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. Never. Never. Ordinary people like us who do extraordinary things. We've had candidates before who attempted to get elected by appealing to our fears, but they've never succeeded because we do not scare easily. We never bow. We never bend. We never break when confronted with crisis. No, we endure, we overcome, and we always, always, always move forward.
So this is 8 years ago. Obviously, that's a different Biden, right? That's like a Biden that's just like super, enthusiastic. And so if we had that Biden right now, like that Biden with that level of energy and excitement, do you guys remember Biden with Paul Ryan? Like Biden fucking demolished Paul Ryan in the debates in 2012, the VP debates. I think this would be a totally different race because the economy is doing well, right? So a lot of people will be like, well, Biden got the economy well, even though we had some inflation, whatever, like market's doing good. And if he had that energy, that's fine. But now it's getting to the point where he can't talk. I think you guys all saw the Lloyd Austin clip as well. That was a tough clip. So Lloyd Austin was the defense secretary that was nominated by Biden. Biden forgot his name, and so he called him. Well, you guys can watch this. This is what he called him.
And so it's all about treating people with dignity, and it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense, the black man. I named Ketanji Brown. I mean, because of the people I've named.
He says, I named the Secretary of Defense the black man. Like he couldn't remember the name of the Secretary of Defense, which is Lloyd Austin, that he nominated. And then he says Ketanji Brown, which that's the Supreme Court nominee. That's not the Secretary of the Defense. But so it's just like, it was just a hodgepodge, dude. And his voice also sounds, his voice, not only does it sound old, but it's lower because it's older. And so like the energy in the voice itself is just down. It's like a much slower, when people get older, they talk in a much more slower way. It's just naturally what happens. It's tough, dude. It's really tough. So we just have a different Biden. And I think that's what his advisors have been trying to say. Hey, like, you're just not the same anymore. But his family, New York Times was reporting, like, thinks that, they're just saying, hey, no, you keep going. You're going to do what you need to do. And as a result, he's kind of conflicted here. This is another video that I think is very important to understand. So this video right here, again, of just objectively speaking, this is the video where I realized, okay, this is just, he's done. Every time he tries to give an example, he loses his train of thought. So then he says anyway, as a segue to get out of that train of thought. But that's just because he can't stay on the train of thought because he's losing, his ability to really talk coherently.
I know you say, Joe, you may not have a Congress. Well, guess what? You all told me I couldn't pass the Inflation Reduction Act. You all told me I couldn't face it. Anyway, we did it.
That's the first anyway, right? Like he's just not ready to like finish that sentence.
We're going to bring rents down, as I said. We're going to build 2 million affordable homes. And cap rent increases of 5% a year so corporate landlords can't God. Anyway, I don't want to get going.
Right. So he's like, I don't want to get going. It's like, no, dude, you just don't know what to say. Right. And it's tough. It's like you could, my grandpa had dementia. He lived with us for a year and a half before he ended up passing away. And dude, the signs were there. Like my grandpa could not finish the sentence. He could not speak. He would forget so many things. Like it was tough seeing someone age like that.
I'm going to get very upset. But there's gouging America. And by the way, not only saves lives, it will save taxpayers. Just what I did on the first round on dealing with Medicare. It saves the taxpayer $160 billion because they don't have to pay these exorbitant prices to these anyway.
So that last sentence you could have said to these corporations, right? You don't have to pay these exorbitant dollars to these corporations, but he said to these anyway. It's like, I don't think he could remember the last word of the sentence was corporations. That's it. That's all he has to say, to these companies, to these greedy corporations. But he goes anyway. And it's like, dude, I just cannot imagine that guy negotiating with Putin. Like, whether you think Trump is better or not, I'm not making that argument here. I'm just saying that person, I don't know if he could seriously get into a room with high level officials and get things done, just given his inability to speak as coherently. So, I was also last night watching Biden in 2021 when they passed the infrastructure bill. And I was listening to like how he acted when they passed it, which was his biggest policy accomplishment. That was like one of the best things he was able to do as president. And even in 2021, he was competent. He explained why they passed the infrastructure bill, why it was important, why the infrastructure bill ultimately mattered. I'll pull up a small clip of that. We'll watch like 30 seconds of that. But you'll notice from just 3 years ago, when they passed a really big bill, no one had these concerns about like, oh, what's happening with Biden, because he was able to talk. And so his ability to talk really made people feel that he knows what he is, what he's doing. Here's just a little bit of him. This was in November 2021 when they passed the infrastructure bill.
Tax for anyone making less than $400,000 a year. Say it again. Folks, no matter what they tell you, you're going to find out. This will not affect your taxes one little bit and having to pay a penny more if you make less than $400,000 a year.
So even that, right? Just like telling the American people, hey, I just got a bill pass. Your taxes are going to be good. Like we're good to go. Like even he was able to competently get that out there. A little bit slow on the words, right? He's getting older, but not to the point where it's incomprehensible or he's losing his train of thought. And so that is the objective difference here. And I am particularly surprised by Americans who are just choosing to deny that. As Gene says right here, people age different. Like some people are just denying what they're seeing. And it's just like if you're just objectively looking at it, you can still vote for Biden if you just don't agree with Trump or vote for the Democrat. Like that's out of the equation. The question is, do you think this person, would you trust them running a company? Would you trust them running a Fortune 100 company, which if you're the president of the United States, that is the biggest company on the planet, right? That affects every other company on the planet. And so if you wouldn't trust them with that, I don't know if you would trust them actually being the president. So this weekend's going to be interesting. This weekend's going to be really freaking interesting to see what happens with Biden and if he does drop out. And then I'm really interested on Sunday when the futures open, where's the market going to take it? If they see it at a different level. Where's the market right now? So I think we're still seeing a little bit of a sell-off. Yeah, Palantir below 29, 28.96. Robinhood 23.19. Nvidia's stuck, dude. 116 to 120. Keeps getting stuck. Not really finding the momentum to get out of there. Crowdstrike still down 9%. Rocket Lab 528. Palantir just above 29 again, 29.01. Small caps, we didn't look at that all morning. Small caps are down another 1%. CleanSpark's up a little bit. And then Bitcoin, I think, is up a little bit as well. 65.5 right now. All right. Ricardo says, is this really still live? That is my cue to get out of here. I'll be back for the market close, 3:45 p.m. We'll see what happens. I think we'll have Steve on today. Steve was actually sad. He couldn't make the show last week. So Steve was like, I gotta talk about the market. So we'll see if we can get Steve on today. And then we'll have Palantir Weekly tonight. We have a lot to talk about with Palantir. So we'll be back 11 p.m. tonight. and discuss on Palantir. Cool. Okay. If I don't see you guys in the market close, I will see you on Monday. Also, I'm going to have a Palantir podcast on Saturday. I have another guy coming on the show, breaking down some more government contracts, kind of like a mid-year Palantir update. He hasn't been on the show in a couple months, so he'll be on, and then we'll keep going from there on the weekend. And then we'll see if we get the Biden news on Sunday or Saturday. I'll go live whenever that breaks, and we'll do the coverage. So as soon as we get an update, I will go live, and we'll see how the markets react to Biden potentially dropping out. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys at 3:45 on the market close. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.